I have a group just for staff, so Carrie and Julie, and then, sorry.
It froze and I just had to
And
get it
then
off and on.
the BCC is that blind CC, so you don't see the email addresses of everybody it's going out to. So if you do hit reply all, it would go to myself and Julie. And that way there's that. If you want something to go to me, it goes to me. If you want something to go to Julie, it can go to Julie. We skipped over doing the council review, so I really encourage, we might have time to get to it, but in general, I really encourage everybody to go to our website, or I will send the attachments. There's been discussion about updates, bylaws, and policies, if you want to go with that. However, current policies and bylaws are out there, the member handbook is out there, and while it is cumbersome to go through, it does have very good information about operations and communication and ventures into governance of the council and management of the council, so differentiating between council members and staff and how we all work together and how the puzzle all kind of all goes.
Good question. So, I know even within the council or whatnot, we all have stakes in different things or whatnot. I'm wondering anything above beyond the council, like, you know, like, I don't know, a website or whatever it may be, I know we have decisions like within the council, we have stakes in, but anything above and beyond that, we could have stakes in as like benefits or whatnot, members of the council, stuff like that, based on how things are done or, you know, or whatnot, you know.
Yep. In the light of all the freedom of scheduling, let's just do that. So we talked, John, you had some questions yesterday too about committees and things. So we have the member handbook and the policies and the bylaws go into the structure as well, but the structure of the council being the whole council. And then we have 4 standing committees. We have the executive committee, we have membership committee, we have our state plan committee, and we have our consumer leadership committee. Those committees, we can also have subcommittees. So the bylaws and policy and procedures, a subcommittee. We have our self-directed support subcommittee, and we have the conference planning subcommittee now. So that's council level involvement. After that, there is a national Association of Councils on Developmental Disabilities that we pay dues to, that our bylaws are templated from.
I mean, I didn't quite get all of that.
Yep, no, I will give it back in a summary, if in an email, and talk to you about it later if you want more too, like we said.
And I'm open to checking all those out and, you know, seeing, you know, and do whatever I can as much as possible to be involved in any way possible, you know, what works and stuff like that. I'm open for checking them out or being involved in them as much as possible, you know.
We're gonna tick down a few more spots and talk about our council purpose too, and that'll give light to some discussion as well. What the federal funding says that we're supposed to be doing, the overarching purpose of the council, that is what fuels our state plan just as much as the systems need assessment. And with that, that's how we form our goals, and that's how we're supposed to figure out which grants and projects that we will fund, because they need to match a goal on our state plan. Those goals are from the research that's done as to what the need is and in line with the purpose. With all that, big piece of it is self-advocacy, is in self-determination, and systems level, which is the big picture work as much as it is the little work with supporting individuals, supporting families. And so when you look at all of that, in John's answer, there are numerous boards, commissions, councils, committees, and other groups that meet throughout the state. There's self-advocacy organizations, there's little grassroots groups that are trying to get up and moving. There's the talk about the cross disability waiver legislation. There's a number of opportunities that
do some of these cross states into different states as well.
The councils are by state. There are abilities for councils to work with other councils in other states. Yeah. It usually happens when councils lose funding and the other states get their funding, but there is some collaborative effort there. But there's also that the national council works nationally, so involving all the states and considering all the needs across the board that way. And there are 56 councils, so it's more than just states, territories as well. Every state has University of Excellence, which is NDCPD for us, and every state, and some states have multiple centers of excellence. All of those with P&A come together to support individuals and or individuals with disability, or oh my gosh, individuals with developmental disabilities and their families, and are working towards that inclusion, integration, being able to do what you want to do, when you want to do it, how you want to do it, with the appropriate supports from the state and from all other aspects. And then P&A plays that big role of ensuring that you can do that without worry of abuse, neglect, and exploitation.
And John, there's conferences that occur on the national level that council members get invited to if you want to attend and you have that ability to, or other groups to get involved with. So just keep your eyes out for emails for invites to that stuff.
I have never received an invite. I can't imagine getting invited. No, I would get an invite, but I didn't know.
Well, they come up in the spring, so it's going to be coming up.
Okay.
It's like around March or April is one, and then there's another one in July. So
Yeah, all this sounds fun and entertaining. If we get anything out of the ordinary, you never anything possible. I'm definitely interested in checking these committees or whatnot, or for sure keeping these out as a start. I'm interested in checking them out too.
Sorry. I am, in light of scatterbrainness, there were a couple other pieces that I was going to bring up, but I completely forgot to pause so that we can have introduction. And I know, is it Liebel? I can never say your last name, I apologize. Would you like to introduce yourself?
yeah, and you're learning a lot
I don't
about
know
us.
why
if you want.
I want to add extra syllables in there.
I know.
Okay, no, I completely spaced, so I apologize. So we're gonna pause. We had this slotted for our meeting in September. However, I think it's important for the observation and the introduction. I'll let you, I guess, introduce yourself and then we can chat more.
Yeah, well,
Wait, oops, hold on, point of order. Do we need to have a motion to change the agenda?
We can do that. I was also following with Dave earlier he said that I could table it, so.
All right, well, this isn't, yeah.
We're kind of, it's all over at this point, and if everybody's okay with it, then can
I'm
we?
perfectly
Yeah.
fine with it. Our early meeting was, we had to have a motion, so I'm just going down that path.
Wasn't, yeah.
Go ahead.
okay. Well, so I will not take much of your time. I'm Dr. Weby, the State Health Officer, and I was kind of just stopped by to kind of like listen in and maybe get some introductions and chat for a couple minutes. And I know that you have busy meetings, busy agenda, so I'll kind of be interested in learning more about you and what you do, and then I'll kind of like share with you like if there are ways that we can help or facilitate things. So
Sure.
is that a good plan?
It's a great thing.
Okay.
Any
So
questions?
do you want to kind of like introduce yourself a little bit and?
Sure, we can do that too. Does anybody have any questions before we go around and
Just welcome, thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for being interested. That's I don't remember the last time that's ever happened.
Before we go around with individual, just, I guess, a quick brief. So we are 60% consumer member, I guess,
Sure.
council, families and self-advocates, and then we have state agency representation. We're in the middle of figuring out exactly what that looks like for us.
Okay.
Federally funded, we give grants and projects and support. And again, what I was just saying, the goal is to meet unmet needs and to promote all the aspects of other stuff all over again. But Daryl, do you want to start with the introduction?
My name is Darrell Wall, and I've been a council member. This is my second term, and I enjoy this. I've learned a lot. It's amazing what they're all doing, or what they're doing in helping all the adults that are special needs, and I'm very proud of this organization.
Hey, nice to meet you, though.
It is nice to meet you as well.
Hi, my name is Carol here, and I've been on the town for maybe for long. And it is an honor to be on this council. We learn a lot, and we do a lot of the things, like families and people invisible.
Well, thanks you for your work.
Welcome.
Well, you're welcome.
My name's Susan Karpiak. My daughter is 8. She has a pretty rare genetic mutation on a gene on her chromosome 9. So I'm here advocating for her, and it's probably my favorite part of the quarter.
My name is Tammy Peterson. I'm also a parent of a 12-year-old with cerebral palsy and a 3-year-old with global delay. I'm in my first term, almost second year, and love the work the council does and getting to be a part of it.
Hi, I'm Veronica Zietz. I'm the Executive Director with Protection and Advocacy, so I'm an agency appointee by statute. I think some of the coolest things this council does is really giving a voice to self-advocates. They do a lot of education and conferences and has been really active in developing a self-advocacy movement here in North Dakota.
My name is Carrie Garner. I am a self-advocate with autism, and I'm also the facilitator for Advocates Leading Their Lives, the state-sponsored self-advocacy group. And one of the great things about the council is that we do so much with self-advocacy and actually have an emphasis on it, whereas some areas may not do it, whereas North Dakota, I think that we should sort of kind of like a leader in that.
Nice to meet you, Karen.
Hi, I'm Jackie Pratt-Hodgman. My first meeting. My daughter has a rare and I've been involved in education for 20 years, so I am
Hello, my name is Tammy Destel, and I think I'm the most seasoned member here.
You are.
I've been on the committee since 2006, and I represent Job Service North Dakota. I'm out of the Fargo office. And I also have a daughter who is soon to be 30 who has cerebral palsy. So I'm fortunate where I can provide 2 different voices for the same great purpose, to make people's lives with disabilities bigger and better.
Hi, Dr. Reevy. I'm Kimberly Ruby from your department. So nice to meet you again. Nice to meet you in person. I am here as our Children with Special Health Care Needs Director and our Maternal and Child Health Director. So that is a state agency position on the council. And the goal of my role is really to ensure that health is addressed within our state health plan priorities going forward for the next 5 years.
Is it the first time we meet in person?
Like the 3rd time.
Okay, that's what I
Right
thought.
during COVID, so I get to see you on.
Because I've been
Your
here like
screen.
for almost 2 years, and it would be a shame if that's the first time.
Yeah, I think it's only like the 3rd time. I don't come to Bismarck very often anymore. I was saying I really don't miss that commute. It's not my favorite.
Hi, I'm Julie Hornstedt, and I'm the director of the DD Council. Apologies for their doing carpet out there, so we've been kind of dealing with that all day. But the council sets goals for 5 years at a time, and on this 5-year cycle, health is always on our goals, but specifically in health for people with disabilities, looking at fetal alcohol syndrome as a rising factor in our state and what we can do to look at that. Also, health transitions for people throughout their life and education, and knowing services and how to access them, and educating self-advocates on all different kinds of their health, from their physical health to their mental health. I think we've really been kind of more deep diving into that dual diagnosis with behavioral health and disability. So we always have it on our goals, and it's always really important to us that the people we serve have the most healthy lives possible in looking at whole health. So that's kind of what we're looking at.
Okay.
I'm Brittany Hansen. I am the newly elected chair of the DD Council. I'm the mother of 3 children with developmental disabilities, 2 boys with autism, and my daughter with some lovely fun in between, some health and autoimmune conditions as well. I've been on the council for 2.5 years, and yeah.
Nice to meet you, Brittany.
Ever been at Advocate Bismarck?
Okay.
Seems like he would have a bigger story.
I know, yeah.
You were waiting. Yeah, I was waiting for the rest. I'm Roxanne Romanik, and I serve as the nonprofit representative on the council. I am the executive director for Designer Genes, which is a support association for people with Down syndrome and their family members and other professionals. Also happen to be a mom of a 23-year-old with Down syndrome. Self-advocate herself, so because she is a self-advocate, I can't serve as a consumer family member anymore because she has her own voice.
So I'm John Fennick. I'm on the autism spectrum, and I go to NDSU. I'm on the strategic communication program, and I also write for the spectrum on entertainment, health, and for education as well. I transferred over from BSc. I'm on the council because I come from a unique background, so I'm advocating for people like myself or experience things like myself, or from, inserting my different point of view from my own experiences into the conference and kind of, making my own changes and really reinforce some new ideas and some just enjoying the adventure and the unique experiences that come with it.
Yeah. Well, nice to meet you, John, and thanks for your engagement.
Yeah, thank you. Awesome.
Got a couple people in virtual world
Yes.
we can call on too. I don't know who's left really. I see Lori's face.
That's
Yep.
me.
Oh.
Hi, I'm Lori Garnes, and I'm the executive director of the North Dakota Center for Persons with Disabilities, which is at Minot State University. And I work with the DD Council and PNA as a part of the state's Developmental Disabilities Network. So I think that my role on the board here, I'm most happy with the fact that this group really has its thumb very firmly on the pulse of the folks who have disabilities, and does a lot of work to try to get voices from the disability community to understand what their needs are, and then to likewise be a conduit to get good information back to them. For example, during the COVID, when all of the COVID extra money was coming out, the council funded a number of projects to help get good information into people's hands, to make sure that they had transportation to get to a vaccination clinic, to get testing, that their questions were answered, all of those kinds of things. And then the work with fetal alcohol syndrome and in general health disparities. So we're glad that you're here and interested in this because it's important to us too. Thank you.
Yeah, the more you can spread the word and get people involved and curious and stuff, I think the better anything's possible. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, Dr. Wiebe, we know each other well, but Sarah Stolt, I'm the Deputy Commissioner for Health and Human Services. And Dr. Wiebe, we are the designated state agency for DD Council. So this is actually my very first meeting as a member of the council, but we act as essentially the fiscal host and the people in HR side and the hosting essentially as an agency within the state for that work. So I am learning a lot today. I am also home with 2 sick kids, one in one room watching Frozen and one watching Power Rangers in the other room, and I'm playing nursemaid back and forth. So I am hit and miss today on where I can jump in.
Okay, good to see you, Sarah.
You too.
And I am Crystal. I am a parent advocate. I have 2 children. My son Briar, well, I have 3 children total, but 2 children with both diagnosed with autism. One is 5 and one is 4.
Oh, did we lose you, Krista, or were you done?
Oh, I was done. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
All done.
Anybody have any questions for Dr. Wiebe? Or
Any we are done with the virtual.
I think
Oh.
that was
I
everything.
think that might be.
Because we still have two in the
My
back.
name is Angie, we met outside.
Yeah, thank you, because you told me, you pointed me where I need to go, so thank you very much for that.
And I'm Stephen Beard, Cheryl's husband, and I'm just here as a guest.
Okay. Yeah. So I want just kind of like to let you know that, you know, it's really very humbling experience to come and listen and know various services that our Department of Health and Human Services, that is providing citizens of North Dakota. And the one thing that's very important that I want you all to know is that we are all your advocates. So add my name as an advocate also for all what you are doing. And I'm really thrilled and glad for your engagement and being part of making sure that we hear the needs of North Dakotans and that we address and provide the services that they need. So yeah, I do not have much to say except that if there is any way that I can help or anyone in the department can help, please don't hesitate. If there are issues, challenges, if there is a way that I can facilitate things or make things easier or anything of that sort, I will be more than happy to do that. And likewise, if you find there are certain questions, certain issues, you can reach me as well as anyone on this council. So that's in a nutshell why I'm here. So then to make sure that the voices of all our citizens in North Dakota are heard, and that we in the department hear the needs as well as address and meet those needs. And my apologies, because apparently I was on the agenda for last meeting and just kind of like, you know, crashed the meeting today. But I hope that that was a good opportunity to know you, meet you, as well as learn about all the work that you are doing.
Excuse me.
You're welcome to stay, or
I will exit in a minute. If you have any questions of me or any requests, I'll be here for. I mean, this is your chance to ask me any questions.
Okay.
So
I know that John has questions.
Yes.
John has good questions. What's
Yes.
your agenda?
Make them easy.
Oh, that's right.
Okay.
What's for disabilities, like what kind of approach the Human Services Center is taking, you know, for terms of support or anything for services or agencies or, you know, to help understand different groups of people with disabilities or different individuals with certain disabilities and how different they are and stuff like that, and approaches that are to take with those differences.
Yeah, thanks that's a great question, and that's exactly why we exist in this field. The way, so I will not go into the details, but I will tell you that our approach is that we want to hear from each and every one about their needs, because each one has different levels of needs, different kinds of needs, different approach of what they need, so then they have a successful life. And that's kind of like the approach we take, that, you know, we see the needs that each person see fit, and then we are here then to meet those needs. Because we know that there isn't really a one size fits all. It's every person has their own needs, and we are very aware of that, and that's the philosophy, and that's the concept that we want to follow.
There is a group called Self-Equity Meaning in Life. If you want feedback when you need, then you can come and talk to us, and we can give you feedback.
Sure.
Julia or Kelly, put that on our agenda.
We will put that down on the
Yeah.
Let's read
If
it.
you're ever developing policies or documents and you would like them reviewed by people with disabilities for feedback, that group Cheryl's talking about is a self-advocacy group with 30 to 50 people that attend at meetings, and we've had people from emergency management come and share their policies or person-centered planning to get feedback directly from self-advocates. So we always welcome that if you ever have that opportunity.
And I'm here right now, you can always have feedback here.
Yeah.
You can use
Yeah.
surveys or emails, and often I get email or feedback as well.
Sure, yeah, I'll be glad to be involved in any way to help. And that also a reminder that, we see this as a kind of partnership, and we work together because we do not know unless you tell us what your needs are, and your input, your feedback, your thoughts, your opinion, and your perspective is more important than ours.
Okay, so, yeah, we will get home with you and set up.
Sure,
So
sure.
you can come and talk to us.
Now, I even put it down just in my notes right now, Cheryl, don't worry.
Yes. Just send it to me somehow via email or my assistant, and I'll be ready to do whatever works.
It's amazing how the different disabled, cerebral palsy and whatever other disables, they each have their own, like cerebral palsy has different stages. And what John has, what issues he's got, he does pretty good. It's amazing that a lot of them do as well as they do. And sometimes you meet one that does some unusual things, but that's the way it works for him, so, or her. So I have some paperwork on the cerebral palsy, and it's amazing what one lady that lived in the building where I had, the cerebral palsy, what she had, just only affected her legs. So in my case, it goes like this, So it takes a growing up, I was always angry and always annoyed because then I couldn't do things. And then one day somebody was joking with me, and I turned it around and I just went with the flow with it. So my sense of humor has changed just because of that. And everybody jokes with me now. I look at it as just noise. And occasionally I will say, I'm gonna hide down, you're making too much noise. So that works, so.
Yeah.
One thing, so I had CP, and I had an awesome body, but I had some different area, like my voice, and skinniness, and I did 5 legs, like a 10, like. But as I go over, I wrote some pages, and I wish there was some more research about how people with this CP get over it. Because I know it don't get worse, but does it change as time as you get a little older? And then no research, this research how to get CP and what CP is, but it never go farther than that. So I wish there was some more research on that.
Yeah, thank you for all your work.
I think with me, like, so I want to kind of brush up on autism a little bit, but like, one thing about autism too, like, there's a lot of misconceptions and stereotypes about autism. Like, most people, they frame autism in an unfair way that doesn't describe autism or what it is and stuff like that, like it's a neurological disorder and everything, and, you know, you think differently and it's broad, like a spectrum, it's on different levels, different forms, affects people differently. You know, I used to know, I mean, I do still kind of know, I like to think I do. A gal used to work at, just close to independent living, used to say, you know one person's autism, you know one person's autism. I still think that's very true and stuff like that. Like, one thing about me is like, I've learned to embrace it and accept it and make use of it, what I can, just be myself. And, you know, over time, since I've expanded my ways, my horizons and everything, I learn more about myself and be accepting myself based on my experiences and how I see things and stuff like that. And I've learned to just, you know, work my way around that and really educate people and open minds and, you know, and just, you know, and have fun and all that good stuff. And a lot of those things I've also wrote my articles on as well, and including other work I hope to do as well at the same time. Yeah.
Well, thanks, John, for sharing. And as you said, I mean, many times it's kind of like educating other people is really very important.
Oh yeah, I know people with autism. Like I feel like it gets. Maybe I have another friend who's real close to me who says like it's unrepresentative or it doesn't get represented. There's a lot of misinformation and stuff like that. So, you know, I think a lot of people, when they see one thing, they gravitate towards one person with a disability or a particular disability, autism, whatnot, and they think it's the rest of the people with disabilities. Sometimes they, you know, there's this thing going around where everybody agrees with one other person because their confidant says it or because their peer says it, and it's like one, you know, it's like spread the word, spread the rumor, and then and everybody follows and stuff like that. And I feel like there's a lot of you know, there's a lot of generalizations, you know, certain groups of people as well, you know, like this group of people because he's that color, because he does this, because he's irrationality, he's this, he's that, and that. So I feel like there's a lot of miscommunication, misunderstanding on that as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's very true.
Yeah.
I'd just like to say that the council operates on a 5-year plan where we set out goals to work on together. And one of those things usually ends up being improving the health of people with disabilities. So one thing we do is work on, at least currently, annual health conference.
Sure.
So I just kind of want to put that bug in your ear that perhaps the Department of Health, the HHS, can be a partner in that respect by either providing speakers or even sending staff so they can kind of come and learn how the disability community feels about healthcare and what they need from folks.
Yeah, absolutely. Just send me some additional information, and that's, I mean, that's the core of what we want to be involved in and what we want to be doing. So thanks for planting the bug in my ear.
Dates to be determined, but it'll be in
Okay.
Bismarck, we think. So we will
Okay,
keep you
that makes it
posted.
even more convenient, so nobody has any excuse.
I would say to follow up with that, as a parent of a child with multiple medical diagnoses, and I'm not the only one, I would love to hear from the department's perspective, one of the biggest barriers that individuals with disability has, especially because we're so rural in this state, is access to medical specialists, especially pediatric medical specialists and behavioral health. So right now, what is the department working on to increase the access? Because one of those barriers continues to be the state blocking us getting out of state medical care. So taking our children to Minneapolis for care for children that have very complex diagnoses, and the state is pushing back and wanting us to be, you know, seen in state when there's not providers that are qualified to treat our children.
Sure.
So what is the department working on to increase that access?
I'll be taking back this this request and see what we are trying to do. I know that access is always an issue, especially in rural areas. I wouldn't say that there are you know, certain things that we as a state want or not. Sometimes it is the funding as well as the rules attached with the funding or with the program is what dictates many of these things. So I do not have a lot of details, but I'll find out more about
I
that.
think a good example, I don't know if Toby's on the line, but like we have, maybe there's more than one now, but one pediatric neurologist in the state who's not typically, like he's great, but he's not qualified to work with individuals with a high level of need. But then, you know, we have families that get pushed back from the state accessing that out-of-state medical care. So it's just, behavioral health is a great example. We have very few psychiatrists that can work with pediatric patients. We know we're largely rural and it's going to continue to be an issue, but it would just be interesting to hear how the department is trying to make it better.
I'll find out more details and we'll follow up on that. because access is very important regardless of the location.
And then I would just add on to that is the medical transportation issue
Sure.
continues to be a problem, both from the complexity it might take for a parent to get reimbursement to maybe even in-town access because we don't have the transportation that we need. I mean, we don't have an active running taxi in
Sure.
Bismarck. And so that, I think, is the other piece of access.
Sure.
And some of that too, Dr. Weeby, is we get told by Medicaid and by all these different things that we have to use the transit for Medicaid rides. We have other providers too with medical transportation that are willing to get paid, but they're demanding that we use transit, and we're never on time for appointments. We have to basically, I've had people waiting six hours to get picked up. So it's a real problem.
Kim?
So I think the department needs to look at that.
Sure.
Sorry, Trevor.
I was just going to answer some of Sammy's questions, and I can, of course, visit with you more offline outside the meeting. But there are some things, I know you're specifically talking about North Dakota Medicaid and the barriers with out-of-state medical access. And a few years ago, they had established a committee that developed a special form that families can take to their provider when they are filling out the paperwork authorizing out-of-state medical care, and it's SFN number 606. And if a family doesn't know about it, they definitely should. I think it's very underutilized, where basically, in addition to your regular out-of-state medical request, you can have special circumstances, and one of them is that either the wait is too long to get into a pediatric specialty provider, or that you are in need of a more comprehensive team than what can be addressed here within the state of North Dakota, because our services are so fragmented. And if that accompanies your regular out-of-state medical request, it's given more special consideration, and it's actually reviewed by their core team. In addition to that, there's also a newly established Medicaid Medical Advisory Committee that meets quarterly. It has various representation on that. And one of the good things that has come out of the integration is that we do have more of a say on things that maybe we think should be discussed on their agenda, or we can be active participants and observe those meetings and speak up when public input is requested. So that has been very helpful. And also over in our division in special health services, but now we're DHHS. We actually help with some statewide care coordination, and I'm in process of having one of my staff receive professional training and certification on becoming a community health worker, which is pretty cool. So we still have a long ways to go, but partnerships are improving. So if you ever have questions, please reach out to me. I think you have my contact information, but if you don't, I'll make sure you have
So there's an
it.
additional form in addition to
Correct.
the out-of-state form.
Correct.
Would you like, can we send that out?
Yeah, I could
So
send that to Julie.
the out-of-state
and
form
Tom.
frequently gets denied. I've
Yes.
been the subject to that numerous times because it's just reviewed
Right.
at the, I'm assuming the human service zone level.
It's actually reviewed at the state level, but if you have this additional form, it kind of like red flags them like, hey, this is one that we have to give some special considerations. There's probably a reason that the family's requesting that they need to go out of state versus, just assuming that
Yeah,
we
well, I
didn't
know
know about in-state resources, or, that's
primary
definitely
has
has
outlined like child has multiple medical conditions on the original form and it's still gotten flagged.
Yeah.
Denied. So it's an additional form.
Correct,
to submit
yes.
With the original form.
Yes.
To take.
And I know, it seems like overkill.
Sends it to a different review committee basically? Or
Yeah, it gets more eyes on it. I think
Awesome.
it's their utilization review committee.
Do either of the committees that review those forms have medical backgrounds?
One of them actually used to be a program administrator that mentored me within
Okay.
Children's Special Health Services. And I mean, I know that she especially has extensive background with children with special health care needs.
I do wish, is Toby on? Because she could probably speak to this.
She's not.
Times 10, but I know it's just been a huge issue for children that are seeking specialty
That's why
services.
there's this SFN 606.
I also want to mention
because
too-
Historically, there's been a problem.
Yeah.
So you
I-
get
we've
the
been
link.
Has
And it's
anyone had
federal-
success
It's federal
with
guidance
with this new
too,
form?
so, I mean, I'm not.
Get the link and spam it.
I'm just curious if
Strength
you
builder.
filed it and had success.
No.
No.
It happens to adults too.
I also want to
Right.
mention too, like, there's a lot of, I feel like there's a lot of misdiagnosis, like the thing the health department in North Dakota is notorious at is seeing the diagnosis and using that as a tool to misdiagnose other people with random diagnosis because of their assumptions and their stereotypes of that particular diagnosis. Or they believe random people with their diagnosis, but they don't have any proof. Or there's also, they see something that they think is there, but they're not educated on, know what's going on. They just do things based on what they only see, what they only think based on medical reason or what's in the room, and make up random diagnoses and sometimes even use that against you to hold you back. I realize that I've experienced that quite a bit. Even people in the autism spectrum are often misdiagnosed as well.
Jackie, did you get your comment?
I was just going to add to what you had to say. It's not families that are referring, it's actual physicians in North Dakota that are referring out of state that are denied. So I think that's a big issue, that they're not being supported by the Medicaid.
We're not saying our children need to go to Mayo or Gillette.
No, it's our
The primary care physicians
yeah.
are saying our children are too complex to be seen in state.
So what did you think of what I was just mentioning? I don't know if I'm just curious. All that stuff I was mentioning about misdiagnosis, yeah, and so on.
Yes.
I'm just curious. I don't know. It's my experience, so I'm not sure my experience is valid or not.
It is. It is.
It doesn't sound like it.
It is.
Thank you, John.
If I can, sorry, have a chance. I was wondering if there was a way that you could maybe partner with like some of the self-advocacy groups to like, because most people, especially with some medical people, they see disability as like a one-size-fits-all treatment plan. Like everyone with autism needs this kind of medical care, or everyone with cerebral palsy needs this kind of medical care, or so on and so forth. And so is there a way to kind of like educate the doctors that everyone with a disability needs the same treatment placement and plan, and also because there is that one-size-fits-all approach, there are self-advocates that are maybe hesitant to go to a physician or something because all they're going to be told is, okay, A, B, 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 you know.
Mhm.
So is there a way to kind of like maybe help us out so that way more people who are self-advocates and disabled to get better access to care, get better quality of care, you know?
Yeah, thanks for this observation, and that's, it is a process, so there wouldn't be really like, we will educate everyone and now everyone knows. So it's kind of like you have to tell them, and then like in 6 months, tell them again, and then in 3 months,
Yeah.
tell them again. And that is part of our role, and that's part of all of us that we have to do, is kind of like educate not only physicians, but also the public on that each person has their own unique needs and unique characteristics that they need of services or of plan. We will do and we'll make sure that physicians are educated, but then it goes also beyond physicians to all providers and all our citizens. But that's part of what we are supposed to do. Yeah.
I know you'll leave here today and you won't know everything about what we do and what we are, but if you just remember that we are really closely tied to self-advocates around the state and consumers. So if you ever want that voice and want to hear back from them, that we can be that help to you in the department. And as you can see, everybody's very willing to help and share. So I think they'd really like to take that role on. If you ever think, we'd love to run this by a group of people who use the service, we can help you with that.
Absolutely. Thanks. Okay, well, I'll let you kind of go back to your agenda. Thanks for giving me a few minutes. And I think many of you know how to reach me if there is any question. Last minute, thank you for all what you do. You are an inspiration to the department, but also for the whole state. So keep doing this outreach and engagement and advocacy, and add my name to your advocacy. Okay?
Will,
Thank you.
you got it down.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck getting out.
Since we're kind of in the flow of doing things,
Can I ask,
I'm gonna see. Oh, yeah. go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, I interrupted. Do you need, I'm just looking at the agenda, and did you need a motion to approve the executive committee report that you were given?
I was just about, because we
Okay.
have, I don't have to approve the report, we need to get to the purpose piece. But
Okay.
this is right around the time when I had to put in a bathroom break, because it was hour and a half, 2 hours after lunch. Does anybody want to take that, or do we want to keep chugging along?
I would take 5 minutes.
Scheduled, so if you guys want to break quick for that, then come back.
Yes.
Some of us just constantly have to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Anything.
Okay, we're gonna get started. So we just have had a few people leave, and so we were just double checking our numbers real quick here.
We still have Dave on? He's not. Oh, well.
I
He's-
just didn't know if
he's
you
on.
established quorum at one point in the meeting, are you?
If we lose quorum, we can't stop business.
Well, vote. We can keep going. Voting.
Yes, we can't discuss business or voting at that point. So if somebody notices that somebody's left, they're supposed to bring it to the attention of the chair if we're operating that way, but bring it to the attention of who's keeping up and address it, from what I understand. It might be, I'll find it. So I know we, Sarah and Toby.
Sarah, Toby, and Cheryl had to leave. Tammy's here for 20 minutes.
We already didn't have Mary slash Leah and Heather. Or somebody else, or Nathan.
Yep.
3, 4. So 6.
Seems 11 is a quorum. This is Dave, is that correct?
On 10. I'm sorry, what?
Oh, you have, yeah, half is a quorum?
Well, that's where it's, so Century Code is simple majority, ours is, I think it just says majority, so, and then, to do what we're about to do, I need 2/3 of who's here. So 2/3 of the, yeah, well, that's what the 2/3 of the council, I believe it's still 2/3 of the council to make like bylaw policy change. Is that in relation to who is here, who established quorum, or is that 2/3 of the membership as a whole?
Well, I don't know what you're saying about 2/3 or majority. So generally speaking, not generally, open meetings laws says half or more is a quorum. So you have 20, half or more is 10. So to have a meeting, conduct board business, make motions, you need to have 10. So if we fall under 10, kind of almost have to end the meeting. I mean, you don't have to end the meeting, but you can't, you can't take any action whatsoever. If your bylaws say that you folks want to have 2/3 to do something else, not a bad idea to keep following that, right? We wouldn't want to just disregard that bylaw.
Okay, I was just looking at the clarification and I found my language. So our bylaws, to make amendments to the bylaws, are, if we're gonna alter, amend, or repeal anything, that we have to have 2/3 majority vote of the council members present, provided a quorum's been established. So we have quorum, so it's 2/3 of those who made quorum. Correct?
That's what that would sound like, yeah, if your
How would that-
bylaw says.
We have 12.
You have 10 right now, or you have at least 10?
13. Yeah.
In the meeting right now?
13 in right now.
Who
Okay.
else remains?
2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, and then 12, 13 virtual.
Okay, we have 6, but we have 6 absent, so how do we have?
I just
I
counted
mean, so
bodies
somebody
in
else
the
would be
room.
absent. Are you counting doubles?
I just
online?
counted 1, 2.
Oh, my thing is on.
Oh, I didn't count you, I counted
Oh, no,
Crystal, Lori.
Sarah, okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13.
Yeah.
But we only have 6 as being absent, so we should have 14.
Oh, well, I mean,
Find the list.
there's 13 here, but.
Is 20 counting the 2 new additions because Sarah's new and so is
Mhm.
Jackie, right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be more than 20?
We've only got 20.
Well, we have 13, so you can move forward.
Yeah.
Figure out who's not here.
Okay. Minimize. Okay, so pull this back up. I'm incorporating. And now there's the big messy again, so. Okay, so I was combining finishing chair update as well as the executive committee, because they kind of sort of went in line there. The last piece of the executive committee report is going over our purpose. And the purpose of going over our purpose is that when the DD Act 2000 from 2000 is the current law that funds and establishes our council, and that is when the purpose statement changed. And again, the purpose as well as the needs assessment fuels our state plan. And so we discussed it with the executive committee. The executive committee voted to recommend it to the council, that the council adopt the new purpose statement. Shoot, did I seriously lose it? Hang on, the whole make you guys dizzy thing. Get back down here. There we go, skip down. So the updated purpose would read, and I can show another page if I need to, it's straight out of the federal law. There are 2 paragraphs, however, because it splits the to engage in advocacy, capacity building, and systemic change activities. And it quotes why and where and consistent with other sections of the law. And then the next paragraph continues on saying that those activities need to contribute to a coordinated, consumer and family-centered, consumer and family-directed, comprehensive system of community services, individualized supports, and other forms of assistance that enable individuals with developmental disabilities to exercise self-determination, be independent, be productive, and be integrated and included in all facets of community life. So it is a cut and paste for that. Our mission remains individualized to the council, and we can address that in the bylaws and policies and procedures subcommittees if anybody feels that that needs to be addressed. But the purpose piece felt like it was an easy piece to tackle, kind of black and white. And the recommendation from the executive committee was that we adopt it. And so to kind of ratify actions that we took, we voted to adopt it. The full council would need to discuss it, and then we would make motion to approve the executive committee report, which I believe in turn would also, no, we would approve to do the executive committee's report because it would be approving that at this point, because this is a bylaws change, we would have to have 2/3 versus the regular vote to approve that.
I guess I was going to make a motion. I was going to make a motion that the council adopt this purpose statement. Do we need to approve the whole report rather than just the purpose statement?
No, not really. That we need to ratify things that we did, and this is the only action item that we really
So I would make
accomplished. So
I'll make a motion that we adopt the purpose statement as written by the executive committee.
I'll second. Is that Susan? Susan seconds.
okay. So we have a motion and a second discussion now, right? Do we have any discussion on the purpose? Any questions or anything that anybody wants to address? So this would be reflected in our bylaws and in our policy, typically on our agendas and eventually on our website and other things like that. Okay, so.
And 9 is 2/3 of 13, so you need 9 votes to pass.
For
That way you're-
2/3 for policy, should we do a roll call or is it just add?
We should probably do roll calls so we recognize we have 9.
Yeah, I can't put my list without, oh yes, I can.
In the notes, we can call name.
I don't know, but I have, got to pull everybody's names back up. Jeff, that's why. Good, golden. Okay, all right, we're gonna roll call this vote, so just yay or nay that way. So Cheryl is absent. Crystal?
Yay.
Okay. John. Britt, honey.
You said yes,
Well,
John? Okay.
John said yes. Susan?
Yes.
Toby is absent. Sammy?
Yes.
Sorry, Sammy.
Yeah. Oh,
So yeah. Roxanne?
Yes.
Why don't we- Jackie?
Yes.
Trevor?
Yep.
Daryl?
Yes.
Lori?
Yes.
Kim?
Yes.
Jeff is absent. Mary Specialty is absent, and Veronica.
Yes.
There's mixed rules on whether I vote or not, but I'm gonna say yes. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Why am I going? We have all yeses. We'll figure it out then.
Motion passed.
Come on. Okay. Moving on. Get everybody dizzy with the presentation and then back. So the next piece was of the update, and then moving on to the next section was committee and subcommittee appointments. Again, I was blending the report and the executive committee report.
Can't we do meeting schedule?
We will. So our committees, though, are typically appointed when we do officer elections, and the end of our last meeting was busy, to say the least. So we had done the ballot to have people elect for the other standing committees. However, the results kind of came up to similar to the executive committee, which would mean that every committee is built of the same people. So the executive committee said that we would look to take volunteers during this meeting, and then the formality of it is that you are dubbed appointed when we say, yes, your volunteer has been accepted, or so. Quick review. We have executive committee, membership committee, state plan committee, and consumer leadership committee. So membership committee has 5 members. Membership committee is to recruit new members, ensure that members have adequate support, and make other membership recommendations to the full council for approval. Membership committee has also interviewed potential members, so prior to appointment, prior to making that recommendation back to the governor's office as well.
Yes, Jackie, you were the most recent one that kind of went through that
Brittany,
Zoom call.
Brittany, can I ask a question about the membership committee? So I saw the executive committee's 2-year term, and that one's voted on. With these other subcommittees, or I'm sorry, not subcommittees, regular committees, how long are the terms for those? Are those also 2-year terms?
Technically, the bylaws and policies say these are 1 year. So these 3 standing committees are every year. So that's something that's been brought up to address, because we have 2 years for officers and we have single year for the other committees, whether they be the same or however. So typically the term for a member is 4 years. You can serve 2 terms. Once you serve 2 terms, you have to have a 1-year lapse before you can be reappointed. Executive committee, there's weird, hairy language about the non-officers of the executive committee, but the officers, Trevor and myself, would serve a 2-year term, starts October 1st. That's in Century Code, because that is our federal fiscal year. And then there's 2 terms. You can repeat once for a total of 4. And again, we have some very weird, hairy language if there's allowed to be a gap or if that's your total ability. Membership committee, state plan committee, and consumer leadership committee are annual. It is the only thing in our policy is that you are appointed, which doesn't say whether you are voluntold or you volunteer. So we opt for volunteer.
So every October, if you guys can talk about how to go forward with years and stuff, but for now we'll operate as our policy says and do a 1-year volunteer until that gets changed.
So I was just gonna go over the other ones real quick here. Oh, sorry, I'm bouncing back and forth like crazy. The state plan committee, again, 5 members, and the numbers of people on the committees is not arbitrary in a sense, but it was established 2014, 2018 with the last updates. There's no rhyme or reason to the number other than we are a smaller council. When our membership is solidified with our national guidance, we will still be a smaller council. The minimum number for a DD council is supposed to be 23. We're navigating all of that. So having 15 people on a committee may be a little bit much. So these are numbers that the council can decide with our policy and bylaw updates if you want to keep it at 5, if you want more, if we want to vary who's on it. But for now, it's capped at 5 people. There's really no differentiation on individuals or with disabilities, self-advocates, family, which are called citizen members, or agency representatives. State plan in general participates in the development of the proposed 5-year plan. So we are kind of in the middle of that, right? 26, 23,
22 through 26, so we're kind of year one.
Never mind, we're not in the middle, we're in the beginning. But we did it a couple years.
Yeah, we worked on it like 3 years ago.
You have to start like 2 years out at the latest.
To get it ready in time, yeah.
So the state planning committee participated. Lori had a big part in making some of those plans, and it was right when everything fell apart with being able to meet in person. So there's lots of review of all sorts of pieces that we can talk about later. I trimmed a lot of this down so we can just target it now. But the 5-year plan, there's an annual review and update every year that goes hand in hand with our planned and proposed grants that we want to fund, as well as any changes in the needs of the state that are identified. So we identify the goals and objectives. If there's any writing of RFPs, those requests for proposals, or through any other staff activities. Oh gosh, sorry, wrong slide. Yeah, the state plan also is supposed to help do the self-assessment. The self-assessment is a piece that we didn't get to talk about with the executive committee either. And so the council, with coming down, and we'll take it back for more of that federal guidance, but the guidance that ITEC has and whatnot too is at the end of the year, the council performs a self-assessment on all the grants and the reports that came back and our annual plan. So that there's that kind of closed loop quality assurance. We have a goal, we funded this, it did this, do we feel like it met the goal? And then we would decide whether we keep those plans or add different goals, or also sometimes would need to use that information to decide if we want to extend the funding for another year, whether it was delayed or anything like that. Was that you, Lori?
Yeah, just I'm looking at the wording that you have on the screen, and it doesn't say anything about, it just says that the state plan committee is going to develop the plan and do an annual review. It doesn't say anything about granting money or any of those kinds of things. Is that really? The other thing is that you're not allowed to change your goals and objectives without grant permission from the granting agency. And so the committee can make recommendations, but we've already submitted our 5-year plan. It's been approved.
We do have to do an annual plan, an annual work plan, and changes to that are fairly typical, but there's a process that's laid out for that as well.
So the annual work plan and performance review, we do now, and it's due by December 31st. If you do big substantive plan changes like a goal, that can only occur once a year, due by August 15th. So you can't continually change the plan. It can go in once a year. Objectives can be changed as needed, removed or added, so you have more flexibility within objectives. But goal changes can only occur one time per year.
So I misspoke on the goal.
Yeah, just to clarify, just so, I don't know if the feds would want us changing our goals like every month.
But the committee shall identify goals and objectives that can do the RFPs and whatnot. So, and then there's the design and administer the self-assessment, ensuring compliance. And to what you said, Lori, about the grants, the state plan committee, according to this, does not do the reviews for grants, but they would be involved in helping to write the RFP because of the specifications to the plan. My comments with the grant part was tying in that, again, the plan fuels what we should be looking for grants.
Yes, as far as the content area, yes. The committee is looking to see that the activities are carried out. It doesn't matter whether they're carried out through grants, contracts, or just work.
Yes, correct. So you have the staff activities or
And I'm going into this because this is the committee that I would like to volunteer to participate in, but I want to make sure there's no conflict of interest because I shouldn't be involved in the awarding of any grants.
Oh, yeah, good question.
Yeah.
Anyway,
the way that we currently have everything structured, it would fall, my interpretation is it would just fall under our typical conflict of interest and disclosure. So, I mean, and then the integrity piece, obviously, I mean, if the influencing to, which I don't see, so that would be quite the brain activity trying to figure out. So you do have knowledge and background of needs assessment and things as well with, NDCPD. So quick, I'm going to move to the Consumer Leadership Committee. Consumer Leadership Committee is council members who are self-advocates, parents, or guardians of a person with disability. We will address updating language to match our membership categories with the Bylaws Policy Subcommittee, who opt to participate on the committee. So this is definitely the only one that says volunteers, but then you're appointed. The purpose of this committee is to provide consumer input to the full council and promote leadership development for the council, self-advocates, parents, and guardians. So again, that other more push for the consumer aspect. There was some discussion of that the council as a whole is heavily consumer because of the 60% and whether we needed to necessarily keep this, especially when we have a really active all group. That's something that can be discussed later. But having our self-advocacy organization that we're mandated to support participate more and be that advisory to the council, or if we wanted to maintain this committee. But for now, again, there's no cap. My recommendation was that everybody eligible be appointed unless there was somebody who absolutely did not feel that they could or wanted to participate, to encourage
How
participation.
often do you anticipate meeting?
I don't have an answer to that one. That's the only one I don't have an answer to because I haven't been involved in the consumer leadership in my time on the council, so I'm not sure how often. So my recommendation was that we appoint, and then these would be special meetings, scheduled meetings for the time being, because we don't really have an agenda that would need to be developed as we discuss things.
In the past, the Consumer Leadership Committee has taken up things as needed, kind of like ad hoc at times, legislative platform or other materials they've made in the past. So it kind of, they work as needed, if that's still appropriate, or that group could decide if they want to do something more regularly scheduled or take on more. Trevor?
I mean, I am just kind of interested in the Consumer Leadership Committee as well. I mean, a lot of these sound interesting, like the bylaws or the Consumer Committee and kind of the membership committee, but it just depends.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the other talk was, again, we are a smaller council, and we're talking 5 for each of the others, so that's 10 people, and if we don't duplicate those people, that's 10. That's majority of what's here right now by far. So I would encourage volunteers for membership, which is a bit more active, but not as active. Julie and I have discussed really getting a good list of our terms and when the cycles would be, and so that we can kind of do that. And then that would give a much better idea for membership. So say, big meetings twice a year, if we can get boards and commissions cycles in a good way to review applicants. And because we would know when people's terms are coming up and if they weren't seeking reappointment or if we needed to heavily recruit prior to that. Right now we have some odd numbers out there, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I'll gladly do that one. We're interested in that one, membership. for
That membership you said, John?
So, let me see, so we'll go back to membership. So membership, looking for 5 volunteers. I've enjoyed being on membership. I've enjoyed interviewing. I did not get to interview with Jackie. We have another,
We interviewed
who is-
Stephanie
who is Stephanie
Yellowhammer.
replacing?
She just applied, so we interviewed her. All the
Okay,
positions
that's
were
why I think we
filled.
have the
Yep.
numbers. Okay,
So
well, technically.
it's kind of hanging out there.
So, looking for 5. I would like to be a membership. I've enjoyed interviewing and visiting with potential members. Is there anybody else who's interested in membership? John?
I will do that.
Who's online?
Crystal, I would volunteer.
Oh, shoot. Toby's not here. I know she.
So this is Dave on the membership committee. This is to create a pool of candidates for the governor to appoint as members of the DD council.
The committee, right, what we're doing right this moment is I was taking volunteers versus randomly telling people and then appointing them. So our structure is that they're appointed. And that I would also name a chair and that the council has to approve that part.
Yep. Yep. Different
But
question though.
that's This is
I
not
wasn't
the
ask-
whole,
I was
this is
more
not the whole
wanting
council subcommittee.
to.
Yeah.
So
this
my
is a
question
committee.
relates to what they're doing, not who's on it. My question relates to, I just want to make sure you're on the same page that the governor is the only person who can appoint members to the DD council itself.
Correct.
Yeah.
And we would make the recommendation to
Perfect.
the governor. So the language of how it's done, again, versus operations. So applications come, if everything's on well, they come and they're sent to us. There is some question if we don't get the full application, but I think there's been some conversation there. Then there's interviews. So the application on boards and commissions also doesn't ask some of the required demographic information that we have to ensure geographical representation and other pieces as well as disability status. And so some of that can be done via this as well. And then again, the governor is the final say. The governor is the one who does the appointing, and technically he/the office doesn't have to ask, but the language is that they're supposed to seek out to informed groups and organizations and individuals in the community and the council if we give them that information.
Collaborative effort, but we realize that the governor is the final
Yep.
say.
So this is recruitment. This is seeking out people to fill the needs that we're looking for, and then we would make that recommendation to the full council to vote to make that recommendation to the governor. So I'm looking for me to stop making noises. One more volunteer for membership committee. Ideally would be a couple to a few times a year meetings at this point.
Brittany, I can volunteer if you need a 5th member.
Thank you. Okay, so state plan committee. This one is one that we will have to be doing some probably special meetings at this point. Looking at, like Julie said, if we were to make any updates to the work plan, there would need to be discussion with that committee. If there needs to be, if we have some RFPs, then there needs to be some of this.
I volunteer.
So.
Just as a point of clarification, our performance plan and the work plan are due December 31st. So it's something I'm already working on. So I just want to clarify and get the blessing that that has to get done. We can't, I don't know if we can have meetings on that right now, but
I just meant
moving forward, I just wanted that clarified. That's got to get done.
Making a plan. So there may be meetings, more meetings towards the, technically the first quarter of our fiscal year, but the end of the year that most people would consider. And then when we come to, next year, the 24 year, it's 2 years from when our state plan ends. So there'll be some work to start building the state plan again.
And of course, that August date's not here, so if someone felt really strongly about a goal change that we would need to do in August, we could have that done by then or whatnot. But work plan and performance plan are being done now, so that'll have to get done.
I have a question. So I had a thought, and I think I've even talked about it with Julie about next year's plan going forward, and I was gonna save that for my member update section to talk about it, but should I talk about it here? Or
can we, like, questions regarding volunteers for
it's about the state plan, and if Julie's saying that the state plan, just because transition is also a priority over in our division and we devote money towards that. I know we have difficulty obtaining applications for transition over here. And now that we're one agency, it would be very easier for us to combine our funding to make the pot look more appealing to groups. So that's been a thought that I have, and I just don't know where to discuss.
Do you want to get on state plan committee and take that in?
Well, and I have a place for us to discuss it, but I have a place for us to discuss it. In the future, we'll have agency reports.
Or hop on the committee and you can bring that forward.
But the other piece is rewinding back to executive committee, the executive committee language is acting for the full council on emergency matters, right? When the full council cannot meet, our policy doesn't use the same emergency language, but bylaws fill the policies. But essentially the executive committee would address things in between council meetings. And then what is addressed, whether it's acted on or if it has to be paused, even if we address it, it still has to come back to the full council for final approval and kind of go forward. But in stuff like that, addressing it with the executive committee, and then it would trickle down to the state plan committee, or because calling a meeting of the state plan committee can be the chair of the state plan committee, or it can be the executive committee, or it can be myself. Or three.
And we have time, we haven't started working on our RFP. Those contracts wouldn't start till July, but I always plan really far ahead because we know how RFPs can go.
So I'm looking for, Lori, weren't you saying?
Lori, Veronica, and Sammy.
And then me and Kim.
Did you say, Toby wanted
Toby,
to?
I thought wanted to. I know that's heavy on agency. I don't know if Toby wanted.
It'd be nice to have consumers.
Yes. I have Sammy, myself, and Toby, I thought, but I don't want to volunteer her because I know executive committee is being a bit, and she's doing bylaws, so maybe I'm thinking bylaws. So right now it would be there three agency and two consumer, but I think
Cheryl would be interested.
Cheryl likes membership as well. Sorry, she's not here.
Daryl, are you interested in a committee?
What's that?
Are you interested in the state plan committee?
I'm interested in it.
John?
I have never done it before, so it would be new to me.
Or Brittany, if
I have it
if
on
you
my
think-
list to propose the policy and bylaw updates for these committees to be able to have the consumer representation.
If you think Cheryl would be more interested in membership, and if I'm going to be on the state plan committee and the executive committee, I'd be more than happy to let Cheryl pick what she's most interested in.
And if you don't want an extra agency person on state plan, you can take me off. I was just trying to be cooperative.
I do like that. From the deep dive policy part of it, or like the regs and laws and rules part, I like the P&A and the NDCPD audit aspect, I think, for that collaborative, but that's kind of the whole goal. So big picture wise, we were looking to emulate some other meetings where there's really
and maybe an
substantive
option,
reports.
maybe an option is to name a committee that has the members that you want, and then have invited participants at the meetings that, the committee would choose whether they wanted. Like, if I were that person that was invited to come, the committee could decide whether they want my input or not.
Actually, that's a good point. So all of the committees, I don't think that, I'm not sure if the executive committee, that way I think the language, but all of the committees, I'm just gonna say all the committees and subcommittees for that matter, can have people that are not on the council be a part of that committee. They can vote and act within that subcommittee. We can have people attend and they can contribute, but they're not the voting voice. So that is always an option as well.
I'm open to being a voting voice.
Good.
So 1, 2,
Toby's
3,
back.
4.
Maybe ask
Ooh.
her.
Hey, Toby.
Or I'm letting her, sorry.
Hey, Toby. Can you hear me?
Yeah, hold on. I don't
Hey.
know. I have it up to Adeline's Bluetooth speaker.
Sorry,
No.
so we were just doing the committees, and I know that you were volunteering for the bylaws subcommittee, and you're on executive committee, but for some reason I thought,
Oh, sorry. You're
well
back in.
then. Crystal, John, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2. Looking for volunteers for the committees, and I wasn't sure, I couldn't remember if you had said you were interested in membership or state plan committee
When?
with all your commitments that you already have.
In January.
Membership or what? State plan? Is that what it said?
State plan. Mm-hmm.
Oh, gosh.
Nathan told me he wasn't. If you gave the answer, I didn't hear you.
My first preference would be state plan, but if we need to go on membership, I can do that as well. I don't want to do two.
Are you wanting to do the additional committee? Or are you feeling obligated? I wasn't reading.
That's a very tricky question to ask me today.
So my thought, I'm going towards Cheryl, Sammy, myself, Toby, and 4. Susan had asked questions and could maybe convince her to participate, and then we'd have
State plan.
five consumer family membership pieces, and then having Veronica and Lori and Kim be additional members to advise and help.
I should be able to.
Are you wanting 8?
Huh? It's 5, but we'd have the agency.
You would just invite us if you wanted our help on a case.
Well, and we're talking about the rewriting parts. A number of councils have moved to rewrite to say how many consumers, and then dividing self-advocates and individuals, or self-advocates and parents are represented, so that we have that. If we have agency members willing, I would love for them to contribute. And there's a lot of wealth in those contributions, but I also want to ensure that we have good consumer representation involvement.
Let me down.
Okay. So then Toby and Lori, would you be okay if we went that route? So there's 5 consumers on state plan, but I would really, really like Veronica, Kim, and Lori at this point. And then if and when we do move forward with some changes, that maybe we talk about that with numbers of agency versus consumers. Okay. So got that. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Consumer leadership is the last.
I have John and Trevor so far. I don't know. Did I
Yeah.
miss anything else?
John and Trevor, Cheryl had indicated. So
Yes.
my recommendation was that everybody who is eligible participate. Yes, we would have an issue if whoever shows up and we don't quorum for anything, but at the same time, we could address that at the time. So
That was me the last time.
was it?
Yeah, that was me.
Daryl, would you be interested in being on the consumer leadership committee?
Yes.
I think that's a really good plan.
Yep.
I would like to
I don't know
appoint
if that-
everybody unless somebody specifically says that they do not want to participate. Would you be okay with that, Jackie? Okay. Okay.
Thank
then,
you guys for your.
Much on that learning piece, and like, I think you were visiting, I don't know if it was with Tammy or Veronica, but we are working really hard to make sure that everything is public notice. I have a email set up to send out the link for Secretary of State. I know Julie's referenced it as well before, but so you'll get our emails, the Secretary of State email when that notice is put out as well.
Okay.
But that, so you have, everybody is welcome to all the committee meetings. So it's good to listen in and kind of see if you can put the picture together, and you're more than welcome to talk and ask questions.
You got set up on that. I helped you do that like
yeah.
this week or something.
Okay, so last move for that is I need to I'll have to ask, because I don't technically appoint them chairs to those, and then they have to be ratified by the full council, but I know that Cheryl's interested in some, and I don't know if I'll have to. Okay, I'm gonna table the chair appointment part until the committees meet.
We can update you at the next meeting.
Okay, we did the purpose. We did not necessarily get to a full review. Just get back over grants. Carrie, are you still prepared to give?
Yeah, I can do mine right now.
Okay, give me 2 seconds before you super ready. I'm gonna whip through real quick the last. So I am looking for a vote for one other thing. Roxanne mentioned, and I didn't with the executive committee, but in looking at our membership and the compliance aspect, in 2000, when the law changed, it changed the definition of what a citizen member was. So it used to be, you could be a family member, guardian, immediate family member of a child or an adult who had a developmental disability. The language changed then that, again, promoting self-advocacy, that if you had an adult who could represent themselves, who could advocate for themselves, then the parent guardian was no longer eligible. And so Roxanne,
I just have a question about that, and I don't know. So like my daughter is nonverbal, probably not on a trajectory to where she'll be a self-advocate, at least as it stands right now. Would I still be eligible? I'm talking like 10 years from now.
Yep, I had similar questions. I mean, in from the deep dives that I've done, I can't find anything even close to gray that actually addresses it. So the language just simply changed from immediate family or parent, immediate family, guardian of an individual with developmental disability to differentiating between a parent of a child or those of a child or of an adult who cannot advocate for themselves. And so the parent category is lumped into one. So a third of our 60% that's consumer, citizen, has to be parents of children or adults who cannot advocate for themselves at this point, child because it's a minor or they're a minor. And then 1/3 is our self-advocate population, so individuals with developmental disabilities themselves who can speak on their own behalf and not in a legal content. So we can have adults who aren't their own legal guardian, for instance. Then the other third is a mix, is a combo. So I plan to look into that.
I think the gray area there is that individuals use different forms of communication. So even if your child, you'll know when they're 18, if they're able to advocate for themselves or not. They may use a different form of communication and still be able to advocate. So.
And supported advocacy is another conversation. Sammy and I could take you round and round for a long time too. So if I mean, I feel there'd be limited instances in which somebody could not be supported to advocate for themselves or to, as an adult, the services, the whole big picture should be supporting them to communicate at their level however they can to the best of their ability. But even if you don't have your own legal, if you're not your own legal guardian, you can still advocate for yourself. If you can't communicate in a traditional form, you can still advocate for yourself, and you can definitely be supported to advocate for yourself.
I was gonna say, it could be that people come with a supporter who helps them communicate, an interpreter of sorts, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So you could go from parent representative to the parent support.
There you go.
and supporter. Mm-hmm. So,
Sounds like how it worked better.
Lost my count there. So anyway.
Can I just, I think this is a really worthy thing to maybe create some parameters around. Because I'm gonna advocate for the adult family member voice, which is not represented on in that catch. And that there are a number of issues for adult caregivers that are uniquely different, like end of life, deteriorating conditions that then put you back into a caregiving situation. I just would like maybe the membership committee to maybe spend some time on thinking this through. And I also wouldn't want it to get so restrictive either that we, have to get a psychological to, determine if somebody could or not, or, you know what I'm saying?
With
But
my
I
deep
do-
dive, I'm asking, and when we get the membership guidance that we're gonna get, I said we're gonna get, they made it very clear, we aren't gonna get anything. They're gonna put out federal guidance, and then we hope it
comes
really
down.
does apply to us. But I already have a number of things drafted along those lines.
But could the membership
But-
committee look at that? Would that be a function of the membership committee?
That, I
to
didn't
consider?
even think about that part. I was thinking bigger picture of it, but I don't know where's the line of an adult who can or cannot advocate for themselves? And if that is a local council decision that we need to put in black and white or something for us to be able to, have an algorithm for that? Or is that so stiff federally? And then if so, you're the legislative person, well, and Veronica too, but do we as a council come together to make comment on that at the federal level? Because I question that same thing. The family member representation, if it purpose is supporting families, individuals with developmental disabilities and their families, even if you're no longer the primary caretaker, you're still deeply invested and involved in more circumstances than not. And so the family representation is more than just on behalf of the individual with DD. So parent of child or parent, yeah.
Something the council feels so strongly about that if we would, do whatever we need to do to fix the Century Code, that we would consider that. Just
Century Code is in it's the DD Act.
Yeah,
That's what
I know.
that's what I was like, yeah.
But, we have additional members named in the Century Code at this point already.
I also wanted to mention that,
Oh, I get what you're saying.
I also wanted to mention that there are some people out there has been in the past, or I know it's kind of rare and whatnot, but I feel like there's some that may get talking over, may get misrepresented, or may not be known for who they really are, get held back. To try to promote their true individuality, or the person how independent they are. And there's some that also get, stuck with the system that can't do, that they're left having to depend on, other people to help them out of that situation. They're limited because the system is using its power or being, or authority or whatnot to hold you back and stuff like that. There's some that miss out on
Not
it,
me.
Not you.
Um,
She meant the knocking, but yeah, John, yep, we hear you.
I just had a brain explosion, Roxanne. I didn't even think about from that angle. That Century Code is named that we have additional agency representation right now, and that's where we're seeking the federal guidance to figure out where we're at number-wise and percentage-wise, but that doesn't mean we wouldn't be able to ask if we end up in that boat that Century Code be updated to represent either a set number or however we could look into that we would have a family member representation.
I'm just a little confused. I want to just make sure I'm understanding. Was that question brought up of the adult that can or cannot advocate for themselves for the member who serves as the member? Or?
No. So
or who we are recruiting or what?
No,
Sorry.
so the 60% of the council has to be citizen members is the language. Of that 60%, it's divided into thirds. And the first third is, I don't think it's actually the first third in the way it's written, but the first third say individuals with developmental disabilities, and those are adults. The other third is broken down into parent, immediate family member, or guardian of a child or an adult who cannot advocate for themselves. And then the last third is a combination of the first two groups. So it kind of gives that overflow aspect. What Roxanne was talking about is that the family member or caretaker, for that matter, of an adult who can advocate for themselves is not represented.
Got it. Okay. Just wanted that clarified.
And I just wanted to add in another group that's underrepresented is siblings of adults with developmental disabilities.
And
taking over.
we gotta keep in mind too, everybody, that it's so hard to find people that are willing, you know, to do that.
I think that's something the membership committee can take on is just overall awareness, because I think there are more family members and self-advocates that would be interested in council positions if they were familiar with the council. And we know that the application process is kind of confusing. So if the membership committee can think of ways to make that process easier or even guide prospective members through that process. So I think Julie helped Nathan with his application just because it was kind of.
That's great.
They don't make it an easy navigation.
Yeah, right.
Well, and that kinda, you know, you end up having to help and.
Well, that's okay. That's part of the
probably
job.
a lot of
That's support.
for that.
Mhm.
There's probably some members from the all group that would be interested in serving the council.
Well, that, Angie, sorry to call you out, but that's why she came for the all meeting, but wanted to come today because she talked to me yesterday about applying to be on the council and wanted to sit through and see what a meeting was like.
It's
Okay.
a rough first one to sit through, but.
Yeah, we are oddly gonna be tight here. So, and Carrie has good information that I want to share. So we have, sorry, real quick, we've got the committees, readdressing to make sure, Susan, were you
Can we
interested in
do-
the bylaws policies subcommittee as well?
Yeah, if, I'm worried about time,
Okay,
but if it's not like every week I'm meeting, I can make it work.
when we're brainstorming the structure of that to be compliant with the open meetings, as we can review things independently and then come together, but not a lot of communication between members on the go. So we're brainstorming that. So I will add you to that. Were there any other volunteers besides Veronica's tentative halfway, maybe for the policies, bylaws?
Veronica will share.
She'll be a contributor.
Well, actually, I
Give her notes to Susan, so they're working together.
There.
I mean, the thing is, I just like cannot commit to a bunch of meetings, but if I could draft something and send it to somebody to get people started, I would do that.
Okay.
And then we need to do our.
And Lori said.
We are. It's on there. Okay, so bylaws and policy, I got that. The next one, I was gonna give quick subcommittee reports. Again, they haven't really met, but
Just making sure that you got my name on that list for the policy.
I did not, but thank you. I would have heard it in the recording.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else before I skip over them? I'm sorry. Crystal, I have you just in case, just make sure, okay. So that's that piece, the conference planning and in-home sports, is Toby still on? I was hoping that Toby and Roxanne could give an update on the in-home supports committee is kind of sort of, Toby's taking some action, not necessarily as a part of the council in that aspect. The council is supporting Toby to help coordinate some of this and support her advocacy efforts, but it is not the council necessarily advocating or writing said bill. But Toby, do you want to give a quick rundown of where you're at and see if you can recruit anybody?
I'm getting a low battery notification in my earbud, so if I lose you, I'll just find a different way to not disturb Adeline too much. But so basically, myself and a few other individuals have kind of formed a working group to submit or try to find sponsors and submit legislation for families to be paid as caregivers if they're using self-directed supports on the waiver. So where we're at with that is trying to solidify some sponsors. We have people who have said they'd been that they would be interested in sponsoring a bill, but have not completely committed yet. We have talked to Tina Bay, who has said in order to make this happen, we need to have legislation. And we are working on developing some crude language for the bill, so we can get it submitted to our potential sponsors and to the legislative council, so it can hopefully be voted on this session. That's the plan anyway.
Perfect. Thank you. Any questions for Toby?
Lori has her hand up.
Oh, I can't see it. Sorry. Lori?
Yep. Just a question in general about lobbying and giving testimony. Are we allowed to lobby, one? And two, is this effort that you're talking about, Toby, is that on behalf of the DD Council? And the only reason I'm asking, I think it's a wonderful thing to bring up and discuss, but I know that we've been asked if we would sponsor FASD legislation. Perhaps a number of other people might want the council to be involved in their legislative ambitions. And I wonder if we have a process for how we're going to decide what we do or don't want to be sent out in our name.
Yeah, I am doing this on my own. I know Julia and I think Brittany and Roxanne were potentially involved in that conversation too, about the lobbying piece and how the council ties into all of this. But this is me on my own wanting to change the system, because we need to do something to better support families. So maybe Julia or Brittany can better speak to the lobbying piece. I don't know the answer to that, but I'm doing it on my own, and just, I guess, right now I'm not talking as a council member, maybe. I don't know. I don't know how
No,
that works.
you're still talking as a council member in a sense. This activity stemmed from the self-directed sports subcommittee, and Julie's got some comments too, but we, Lori, are limited to lobbying the same way that you and the PNA are. That doesn't mean that we can't get on board and support and say we're in support of something. It doesn't mean that we have to say we're neutral on anything. When people said agenda and platform and wants, I would love to see the council very active in all of that activity. I would love to see the council deeply invested in participating in the cross disability waiver legislation and the 20 years it's going to take to implement. I would very much love the council to have a seat at the table with the mandates that we are to be involved in any programs that concern individuals with developmental disabilities at the state level, and particularly in the quality assurance plan, and that's in the federal law part. Those are things that hoping to discuss in the relationship with the designated state agency and in the governor's office and everything over the up and coming time, because the council could have a much louder voice in North Dakota. And I feel that much of things that were heard today too, with wanting to be heard and wanting the voice of lived experience and all of that, is very, very important. And I guess that was kind of my big push for things, is getting us to where we have that ability. But right now, because we're all still navigating, I've advised, and I think other people have, that Toby maybe register as a lobbyist. But right now, the coordinating and supporting a member, using those efforts, once something is put together, there's, from the guidance I got back from ITAC too, is that there's nothing to say that we can't say we are in support of, that this would be great. So
I'll make just another quick clarifying comment to that, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So in our state plan, we identified a goal to work on fetal alcohol syndrome, and so looking at a project on education around that, or if people are writing legislation, looking at it kind of as an advocacy effort. Perhaps we support families with our dollars to come to the Capitol to advocate for themselves. we aren't doing the lobbying, but supporting families as advocates, kind of along the same realm of this supported or self-directed services family work or Toby's work, looking at that as family advocacy. And we took that into looking at, in our objectives, we said we'd take on things as they arise. We don't necessarily know what that is, but that's kind of risen to the top right now. So we could support perhaps a consultant to work on research around waivers and what's out there and what supports are, or again, supporting families that care about this effort Toby's working on. So I guess I'm viewing it through the lens of supporting advocates to get to share their story and testimony within our goals that way. Does that help answer, Lori? Versus us showing up and lobbying because we can't.
And the difference, yeah, and the differentiation for it, right, Veronica, is the council can't necessarily write a bill. That was a lot of the issues with our membership and stuff too. They were saying that we needed to find our own sponsors and write it. And so there was hesitancy there, but there's nothing to say that the council cannot, advocates sign on, and the consumers or the council as a whole say, this bill is of benefit to the population that we represent in North Dakota. This would be something that would serve them well. We can't go in there and say, you need to vote for this, but we can give them the information with a factual basis and say, this is why it would be good, or this is good, not you need to vote for it, or you need to not vote for it. We can say we don't support it. We don't feel it would represent the population well, or it could be detrimental. We urge you to look into it further. That is the line that ITAC gives out with the guidance between advocacy and lobbying. And I can add that to my list of things to send out. Veronica, and then.
Yeah, she might be able to answer my questions.
So bottom line, we cannot use federal DD Council monies to support lobbying efforts. We can, however, as a group, educate policymakers. There is a difference. So if the group wants to say, yeah, we see some legislation happening, this is how it impacts folks with disabilities, there you go. That's educating and advocating. It's quite different to draft a bill and say, I want you to support this, I want you to give us this money to do that. So I think we need to be, it toes a line, and I think there's a right way that we can be more active and be supportive. And also say, like, situations like Toby, she's working on this on herself. I don't think she needs to be a lobbyist. I think she can go say, I'm representing myself and my family. I also happen to be a member of the DD Council.
There were other groups that said she should lobby or get registered just to be safe.
Personal
So,
choice,
yeah.
but I'm just saying, like, if you're representing yourself in North Dakota, anybody has the right to go up there and do that.
And I think to provide that clear line, we support families to help families and people with disabilities to advocate for themselves. So if we can support that in a way to provide education.
Back off of what she said, and I think the clear line is that, like, maybe we could testify as neutral, provide education, or if members want to testify as individuals, that's fine. We can't lobby and we can't provide funds to lobby.
The council can provide testimony.
Yes.
The council can sign, it can be signed off that council can provide testimony. Again, it has to be informative.
And not.
Yep, informative, and why we think it's beneficial to the population that we represent in North Dakota, or why we don't, and we have to give some information to support that, but.
The DD Council part of the consortium.
Sorry?
The DD Council part of the consortium. Yep. And the consortium can lobby, correct?
We don't.
We can lobby, but we use non-federal funds to lobby.
Right.
But
I'm saying
if
can
I
lobby in that manner as part of,
So-
the entire consortium supports a bill, we can lobby in that manner, correct?
Many other states have advocates who are delegated to represent the council go and provide the testimony that the council has prepared and signed off on. Many other states have their consumer leadership type group, or they're all groups actually draft, like, not just personal story testimonies, but review of all the bills that are coming down, this cross disability stuff. There are extensive statements, not professionally drafted because they're in very, everybody's day language.
That requires some sort of bipartisan legislative committee within the council. So
create a
lots. So more often, the state plan type committee is. Some have legislative committee, whatever they have, but much like the All Group has a legislative platform, most councils have a legislative platform. There's a lot of very invested
But it would require us to register as lobbyists. wouldn't
No,
it?
because we cannot lobby as a council, period.
Okay.
Cannot.
Well, but if we're going as a council to testify, how do you?
Well,
It- it-
technically, you'd probably be considered part of the designated state agency, and state agencies don't have to register as lobbyists,
Okay.
because
There
they
you go.
can't lobby.
Yeah, actually, that's a
Right.
plus for the way that we're structured right now. One sec, John,
We're
the,
testifying as educational, not as.
Yeah, well, and it's just like,
Persuasive,
I mean,
correct.
anytime somebody can be sitting in a room and they know like, oh, they work at, the Human Service Center, or they work at Public Health, legislators will call them up and say like, what are your thoughts on this? What is this gonna do for people? It's not lobbying,
Right.
they're just
Well,
answering
don't
a
you
question.
typically have to identify if you are,
You can-
testifying in support of the agency, in support of DD Council, in support of yourself, like.
You have to
can be clear.
identify who you're commenting on behalf of, but you can also say, I support, I'm neutral, I don't agree with this, and there's also an option where you don't have to say how you feel about it. You can just answer the question or
Right.
say that it impacts people in such and such a way, or.
I mean, I think it's a great idea that they would use us as a resource because we have the L group. We
it's
have
not an
not-
idea, it's actually mandated.
Yeah, they need
They're supposed to be,
they're
but that's a whole other ball.
I mean.
Yeah, but there's the line is beyond fine. But there's lots of information out there. There's a few TA documents that we have. There's several others. Drafting a bill saying this is what we want and you should vote for it is lobbying.
Right.
We should be commenting on any and all plans and programs and services that involve individuals with disabilities in North Dakota. Whether it's on the human service, whatever committees that they have that meet locally, or if it's big things, but that's gonna take us time to get there where it's an organized effort, and there would need to be.
Commenting as individuals on behalf of the council is not the correct.
Well, yeah, commenting on you would either be as an individual, and then somewhere in there, if you choose to say that you
serve.
You also serve on this because you feel that very strongly, but you would not be on behalf of.
Right.
And so there's the two different pieces. So either the council statement or your individual statement. But in the council statement just wouldn't be like, the paying for the consultant would be a line crosser, depending on what we're doing. If the consultant was to help draft the language and help figure it out, that wouldn't be go, because
No.
it would still be.
I was saying researching waivers and things to that effect.
I think that
Yeah.
that would fall in line with like the subcommittee that's doing self-directed, like you can do those things and then provide that resource, but if you're specifically doing it for the legislation, then that's where the line gets.
Yeah.
If you're doing it as part of one of our goals and one of our objectives, that makes sense, but.
Well, and I just reiterate that it's great to be really active in the legislature. I just want to make sure everybody knows our organizational documents say that, without the full council's support, nobody can go to the legislature and say, DD Council says this. So we would have to have discussion beforehand to say, like, as a group, we want to support whatever we decide. So I just want to make sure, like, the way we operationalize as new members, it's important to keep that in mind.
Correct. True.
So-
We don't have a very responsive structure at this point to do that during the legislative session. Because things come up overnight.
And we do have Disability Advocacy Day coming up, and John, I know, has got a comment. And so there was some talk about that too.
I have, the bride's coming at 3:30, I believe, or is it?
Should be, yep.
Does he get back to you?
He didn't, so he'll be here at 3:30.
Did he get back to you?
No, that's when it was scheduled.
Oh, no, forget my stuff.
Oh, yep.
Okay.
Is still planned?
So we're gonna.
Is it still?
Yep, you're good. Yep. Laura, your hand's up. I don't know if you want it up.
Yeah, I was going to just say that our Consumer Advisory Council for the Censor comes up with a legislative platform every legislative year, and they do go through it, vote on it, and we send it out to all of the legislators before the session starts. In fact, it's going out this week to say these are the things that are important to us as an advisory council. It's just an option for this group if they want to look at doing it that way.
I see collaboration to help us grow in that role.
Yeah, the All Group has one and adopted a legislative platform that was going out in the same way for the All Group, but that can get brought back to the Consumer Leadership Committee to review too.
I am gonna fast forward our agenda to, we need to vote on the meeting dates and then we can wrap up if people have to leave. But I want Carrie to be able to give the self-advocacy information, but we need to, I did it again, hang on, Carrie. We have to vote first because we're about to possibly lose people and then we won't have a quorum to vote. So if you guys will fast forward to the almost end of the agenda, we have the regular meeting times. Typically, we have the meeting, our next meeting would fall March 9th roundabout, the second Thursday. However, Kim's indicated and a few others have indicated, and there's other meetings that tend to fall in the same sequence as ours. If we shifted off a month, there could be some benefits. March 9th would also be 2 days after Disability Advocacy day at the Capitol. And so it's totally
Disability Awareness Day.
There you go, awareness, yeah. So that versus having a meeting prior to that where we could maybe discuss it more in detail and possibly have more council representation there as well as supporting the self-advocates and in general, I think it would be a good thing. So we put forth shifting our meeting. So our next meeting would be in 2 months instead of 3, but it would let us also be meeting before crossover and during session and be able to maybe again inform.
It's like February
So,
14th.
February 9th,
or sorry, crossover, sorry.
Oh, yeah,
Is that what you
sorry.
meant, Trevor?
Crossover the 27th and 28th.
Oh, okay.
So the proposed meeting dates would be shifted a month forward for next year. So February 9th, May 11th, August 10th, and November 9th. Versus the March, June, September, and December. And the other supporting factor is September that week is a strong spot we were looking at for the self-advocacy conference. So that could be.
Lori, are you on?
I am, oops, I am, I'm looking at my calendar.
How is that affecting CAC?
It will not conflict with the CAC.
Because these are during the week still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
Fair
not in
enough.
the same week even, so it wouldn't be like CAC on Friday and.
Could you say those dates one more time?
Yep. So
They're in the agenda.
yeah, they're in the agenda too.
Where are they?
I would.
Page numbers on here.
Yeah, the printed one doesn't have page numbers because I'm not that smart.
But February 9th, May 11th, August 10th, November 9th.
Yes.
June 9th.
So it would not coincide with ICC.
Well,
And
ICC is on.
did
Sorry,
they
guys.
really, did this,
I'm
both
not-
try and do this?
I'm sorry.
They're not January, usually January, that
I have
meeting gets-
hold for ICC on the February.
Really?
I'm so
No,
sorry.
no, it's like we keep trying to avoid it. How does it keep happening?
Well, we were talking about shifting one for that reason, but there were some other meetings that were at the same time and then getting ahead of Disability Awareness Day.
Okay, what about the 8th?
Meeting again mid.
8th is good.
What about February 8th?
We
No,
already have
this
these
room
dates.
is booked with
Yeah.
Olmsted.
Oh,
Yeah, we have Olmsted on.
okay.
Oh, that's gonna be a busy week. So the executive committee was on the 7th.
Danielle,
She can just go. So 2 things that I need to have approved right now, as well as the, well, we have to talk about it, I guess, but is regular meeting schedule and the monthly executive. Well, which is next week, so I guess we don't have to.
What about February 16th, the following Thursday?
You'd have to wait and see if they're available too. Right now, we have the second Thursday that we usually meet, or the second Thursday of the month, depending on which month it is.
If ICC knocked out of the room, will we still have a quorum?
Kim, I believe.
Yeah.
But we are trying to, Kim had made the decision that with everything that we've had going on and the growth, that she wanted to try and be able to attend versus a delegate. Agency people can send delegates who can't vote, but at least can carry forth the information and back.
So what about the second Thursday of the month starting in April? That would be meeting 1.
Is that messing up, like, is ICC in May then?
Hang on, I'm looking.
Are they doing that February meeting?
They're February 9th. They are.
We were aiming for February for
May.
that pre.
They're June 8th.
Right, they usually do a January meeting and then.
How did you get on the same day this year then?
Sometimes that meeting is canceled. Because don't they have 5 scheduled?
They're meeting today. I don't know, I just have them all on my calendar.
I would move to approve this schedule as is.
Yeah, you guys do what works best for the council. I can send a delegate. We worked it out today. It was fine. She did great. She can't vote.
The only thing I want to bring up, I'm sorry, the only thing I want to bring up for the Julie in particular's thoughts are November 9th is the day after we will probably be returning from AUCD's conference next year. It's through the 8th. And generally, some people from the DD Council go to that conference.
So what was that? So
November, they'd return probably the 8th or
I don't think they're
next
right.
day. Yeah.
The September meeting, so the August one and the February, March ones were the ones that really prompted talking about shifting. So we could meet again before, kind of before session switches over and then before Disability Awareness Day. And the September one, so that moving to August so that we weren't getting stuck in the conference timeframe.
I'm okay with the 9th, Lori. That might be a conflict with you, but if you're okay with November 9th or.
Yep, and I can send a proxy in my place if I can't attend myself, so.
Okay.
Good.
Okay. Trevor, did you have?
Okay.
So with these dates that you have listed, can you say the ones that you guys have decided on? So I have-
We were proposing February 9th, May 11th,
Okay.
August 10th, and November 9th.
Okay.
I would make a motion to have our 2023 meeting dates as follows: February 9th, May 11th, August 10th, and November 9th.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor of the meeting schedule as presented?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so we will put that out for notice. There'll be regularly scheduled meetings. The executive committee is meeting next week as well. We'll put ours out, so there'll be 2 regularly scheduled sets of meetings. And then hopefully be able to move to that kind of methodology with other committees so that we have more flexibility. I think that's it that way. Okay.
You want a motion for a proposed meeting schedule for executive?
I was doing it 2 days before those other ones. I was just gonna talk about it next week.
Yeah, I was just concerned because I thought Roxanne and Trevor said they couldn't come next week.
I can't, no, and she can't either.
That's what they said at the meeting.
4.
Well, if everybody shows up, we're okay then.
You can make a motion now if you want. I don't know. The proposed was monthly and they fell 2 days before the tentatively scheduled ones. So I have, but then there's some that are the first week or second, the way they fell. So January 10th, February 7th, proposal from 1 to 4 on the ones that we meet when the full council is about to meet. So 12 to 1, January 10th, February 7th, 1 to 4, or 1 to 3, or 2 to 4, or something to give the longer one right before the council
1 to
meets.
4.
March 14th, 12 to 1, April 11th, 12 to 1, May 9th, 1 to 4, June 13th, 12 to 1, July 11th, 12 to 1, August 8th, 1 to 4, September 12th, 12 to 1, October 10th, 12 to 1, November 7th, 1 to 4, December 12th, 12 to 1.
I would make a motion to approve the executive committee.
I second.
Okay. And we could discuss the in-person or virtual for those big ones, but they're right before, and then the all meetings for the all meetings are the Wednesdays before the full council meetings, so then Cheryl coming into town and stuff will be able to coordinate as well. Not backing, okay, all in favor of the.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we've got those two regular scheduled. I'm gonna let Carrie finally get up. Thank you, ma'am. And then when Carrie is done, the last thing we have to cover was just some announcements, and we can make sure to send those out via email as well.
I'll read through this as quick as I can.
You don't have to go super fast.
The all group held our fall quarterly meeting on October 1st. The meeting would be in September, but because the way the fall quarterly meeting would have been, it would have been like our self-advocacy conference was August, and then like normally, like the week after would have been like our fall quarterly meetings, but we felt that was just way too much going for us, so that's why we held it in October 1st for our fall quarterly meeting in person. And then our Christmas meeting was yesterday, the 7th. We had 25 people attend the fall meeting and 31 people attended the winter meeting. So we are having an uptick, which is great. During the fall meeting, the topics covered were practicing writing and speaking your testimony. We had someone, do you know the lady's name? She was the one that was doing that study. We talked to her.
Yesterday?
No, it wasn't. It was fall in October.
Was it Ann Bestie Goldberg with the study?
Yes, that was her.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was like, who?
That's okay.
I just knew it was a lady we talked to.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and we did videos for P&A about voting, and Krista from NDCPD, please tell me that's the acronym right.
You did.
Okay, did videos on why self-advocates advocate. And then during the winter meeting, the topics we discussed were the upcoming legislative session. We held a mini legislative training institute, and then we, of course, had our Christmas party. Several groups have formed a local self-advocacy group starting in late 2021 and continuing throughout this year. There are 3 local ones currently. People Leading Exceptional Advocacy in Grafton, Fargo Friends Moving Forward in Fargo, and Together We Stand in Jamestown. People Leading Exceptional Advocacy in Grafton has had some hurdles that they're dealing with currently. They even went on temporary hiatus to kind of restructure. Currently, they have 5 to 10 people from LSTC that are attending these meetings. The president of the group has been handing out flyers. He's been calling providers to let them know, get the word out. Yet there is still very little interest. And he's very discouraged about this. I have reached out to him and his support staff and I've offered to assist so he doesn't give up hope or give up entirely. And I got a few ideas on how to engage the others in the community, and I'll have a meeting with him and his support staff once I do fine tuning of these ideas, and I welcome any input from Crystal because she's from that area.
And Jackie.
And Fargo Friends Moving Forward meets monthly at Dakota Medical Foundation in Fargo. And the meetings average 50 people in their attendance. That's our biggest group over all of them. The topics that have been covered include relationships, ABLE accounts, medical transition planning, supported decision making, voting, local and state elections and rights and responsibilities. I think I've got them all. Together We Stand meets monthly at Quality Inn, and their meetings average 30 people in attendance. The topics that have been covered in their groups include rights and responsibilities, supported decision making, community education and outreach about disabilities, voting, and state and local elections. Now, each group had a candidates forum in May this year. to coincide with the elections. That was not fun trying to get everyone.
Carrie and I feel like we planned a mini wedding every single month around the entire state. No.
Yes. 2 were held in person and 1 was virtual. The 2 in person were Jamestown and Fargo. Grafton was virtual. Fargo's candidate forum had 124 candidates that were invited. That was not fun typing on 124 emails. With 6 appearing, Grafton's candidate forum had 38 candidates that were invited, with 2 appearing. Jamestown's candidate forum had 46 that were invited, with 3 appearing. So there is much work that needs to be done in that section.
Carrie, can I ask a quick question? Like, I just never really thought about this. So when you guys all came together yesterday, that was to bring the whole state, that's your statewide meeting. So essentially Bismarck doesn't have like their own group per se?
I know.
Is that true?
It's like, it's up in the
They have American people.
Okay.
And we've invited them, but yeah, we don't have a lot of participation from people
Well,
living in Bismarck.
what's the I've been waiting to ask that. So we're mandated to fund and support in all the ways a statewide self-advocacy network. Why does there have to be like groups under all? Like we can fund a statewide advocacy network. The
Some
network
of them have, because they're
different
501c3.
Yeah.
Well,
Like
I know
Jamestown.
some of that. Yeah.
But it is kind of the network, meeting locally and state.
Yeah.
But
But like the organizations or not, or I guess the groups that like Fargo Friends, it like stemmed from all, correct? So that was my question though, is the network, like the DD network is 3 different entities. So do they really have to be all stemmed from all? Or can we fund and support a variety of self-advocacy groups that are vetted by this criteria that we establish?
Yeah.
Because it's the network that we have to fund and support, not
Right.
necessarily the
Just a
specific
little
groups.
historical piece from the DD Council is they had a history of funding outside entities for self-advocacy with support, and there was a decision made quite a number of years ago to bring that effort in-house. So I feel like the work that this group has put into developing self-advocacy, it seemed natural to have all as a big group and then try and get local stuff started. So I think
Oh,
that's
yeah.
kind of how it worked.
Okay,
Right.
well, and I can see that because then it kind of turns into like mini little granting versus whatever. But I guess the bigger, I was thinking the bigger, yeah. It's
But to answer your
funding the
question-
network, so.
To answer your question, yes, the feds say it has to be a statewide effort, which is all. We can also choose to support other small groups too. So it's kind of splintering to bring self-advocacy more localized.
So that way
all
it's not
statewide,
just
but
the 3,
yes.
the big cities. that-
Yeah, well, and I wasn't even thinking just like funding another group, like giving money to another group, but still like Carrie's efforts and all's board's efforts to mentor and support in that way. So the funding be in those support capacities or something, but that it's still engaging a statewide network of.
That is kind of how it is going.
Can I just make a comment? I think it's so cool you guys had candidate forums, and I just want to.
I actually came up with that on my own, just because it was like, I want people to be able to vote as much as possible. And it's like, well, disabilities people are like, technically like the biggest voting block you can get there. And since so few of them actually know what's going on, I felt it was kind of like a personal mission of mine to inform everyone.
I found a very, very, very old council document. It's not very, very, very old, but it's very, very, very old, that the council had put together, explaining the different, very, very plain language, but putting together the different pieces of legislation or the different, the platforms for these candidates in that one. It's a couple different things, and then a few from other states. But the stuff that you've been talking about and the things that I know you're interested in doing are come about with very organized effort, and I think it's great.
When I plan on continuing that, I'm gonna need extra help. That was just a tedious amount of work doing that all on my own.
I'm trying to control my curiosity to know who actually all came. So maybe later.
Can you send an email, Carrie? I bet you know.
PNA receives federal funds to work on voting access and voting rights. So if all was ever in a position where they wanted to collaborate with us, we would
Yes,
have
that would-
some funding and
that
some
would
staff
help
to
a lot.
assist. I mean, depending on what that activity looked like, because
Yeah.
we have certain rules we have to follow.
Well, yeah, and I understand that.
But I think we could be good partners on this if
But-
this is something all wants to work on.
All's got a big chunk of money again lately too, so there's the, collaboration without necessarily the financial piece of giving. But, because, yeah, the PNA program for voting would have a lot of resources too.
We've had
and-
PNA doing a lot of the training with the express vote machine and what are your rights at the polling station. We had Brenda come in Fargo. We
Which
had,
is great.
yeah, so your staff has been supporting the.
Oh, I know, I'm just thinking we can go so much.
Yeah.
further.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
I
yeah,
know.
Well, that's
yeah,
the-
yeah.
yes.
We
There
welcome
could
that,
be so much,
absolutely.
but even the council supporting our self-advocacy effort would be fantastic. I mean, having people from the council there when you're having these forums or when you're having these meetings or when I absolutely loved going to Fargo and helping with, I mean, that was just not something I'm good at, bite-sized piece of the process and bite-sized piece of writing testimony. And instead of having it in like the 3-day session, like partners or a deep dive, I thought it was absolutely awesome. The only part I felt was missing is that this could be a super collaborative effort that could span so much further and would get those DD providers to make it happen to let people be able to come. There'd be,
That's
I
our
think there
next
could
goal
be
is to
big-
actually get the providers to be more forthcoming.
Do you want to talk about going to the provider meetings, you and Cheryl?
Yeah, was that me and Cheryl or was that me and Carol?
this is where the Consumer Leadership
Shoot.
Committee.
Cheryl or
comes in,
Carol,
though.
I can't, I'm drawing a blank, but go ahead.
Our Consumer Leadership Committee could and should be collaborating for things like that, going to those provider meetings. If there's, the Consumer Leadership would want to talk and learn and discuss those things too, that is big.
Carol and I were, on the call for the provider meeting and we talked about why it's important for their consumers to be a part of all, why self-advocacy is important. And we invited them, to our meetings and stuff like that, and to please get involved. And one of the things that we're considering doing is regular updates, because beforehand, when it was just Julie and I doing it, it kind of fell by the wayside, where they were like, yep, oh, we're good, but we never heard anything after that.
And Carol
Becker is our community chairperson, she's up in Minot.
Good effort.
Well, one of the big things I think you're gonna have a challenge with that is short staffing.
I know, and that's understandable, however, it's become a cop-out answer to why nothing gets done.
But there's technology, and no, it's not as fun having a satellite site, but there's no reason that we can't facilitate virtual attendance to a physical meeting to incorporate sharing information and people
Or bring the
attending.
training right into the
Or
provider.
bring the training right in, yes.
Yep. Do you want to talk about the virtual training we just did with Vicky?
Yeah, we did
We're thinking of all
yesterday
these.
virtual training on medical transition planning and about the AWOL counts, and I think the differences
SSI.
between SSI and SSDI, because there's always what's this, what's that? And there was some good feedback, I do know that.
Yep. So we're trying to build all those blocks in so we can
Yeah,
get around the I can't get there excuse.
yeah.
And there's a video of is it just the Power of 100 presentation, or was there another? I thought there was another video too. Maybe not.
We have lots of videos.
Yeah.
There were
We
some
do have
videos
the
that we
Cheryl.
wanted to play that we'll send out too, because I think that that's important. I really wanted Carrie to have like a good 30-40 minutes to go through all this.
Yeah.
So, thank you for.
The YouTube page can be,
squeezing it
I'll
in.
share, it has Cheryl's video from the Power of 100, along with the Why I Advocate stories, along with our FAS webinars and all the other things we've been recording for a while, so you can feel free to watch those at your leisure.
Crystal?
Yes.
Turn on my mic. Okay. So one thing that, we had kind of talked a little bit like with partners, like when I was coming down for partners class, and one of the thought process was, well, Greg, just come with me he's on Life Skills campus, and then he wouldn't necessarily need to have his support staff come, to kind of help with that staff shortage. If there's someone else who's willing to take on that responsibility. So I don't know if that's something that, maybe depending.
That was discussed when we were doing the all meeting, because we noticed that so many groups that used to come are now not coming, and the ever pervasive, we just don't have enough, and it's like, there's a large part of me that's like, what's the real reason? It can't always be staff, because there were staff issues even before the pandemic, so come on.
So natural supports would be, sorry, go ahead, Crystal.
So what I was going to say is, like, my question with that, which I know Heather isn't on right now, but, when it comes to those types of things, or if there's an event or something, and say, one of us, or, as a parent advocate who has some experience with disabled citizens, then, would that be, is there any specific training I would need to go through to be able to assist in those types of options, to be able to sign them out and be, responsible for them, that type of thing, to be able to assist, not necessarily be working, but to allow to be able to bring them to these types of events, whether
they can actually have the choice and option to do stuff.
I think training is just be permission from the family.
Yeah,
Like,
well,
I acted as Nathan's caregiver, went for meetings and other things, and
that would
had
be
to have
like
permission.
supported by his plan. So the provider would have to be present, like, liability wise, like if they're not providing the care and it's not a complete checkout sign out type of situation, there'd be liability there too.
Some sort of waiver that would have to be signed, or
But-
permission from the family.
Yeah, the
or
training,
whoever their
become a provider.
party in is.
But I mean, encouraging natural supports, and I think it's great, and we have a long way to go to see where less institutionalized, structured, even in the community type service settings, are still very institutionalized and structured.
Yes.
However, Veronica's point of there are funds and there are people, even if in limited fashion, of if they can't come to us, bring it to them.
I'm sorry I interrupted
No,
your
it's
report and got
okay.
us on topic here.
It's okay. It's okay. There are some groups that are in the works for this coming year, in 2023. In January, Julie and I are going to the Standing Rock Reservation to do a presentation of getting a self-advocacy group going, because tribal representation is a huge must. And in late April, we're going to go down to Bowman to do a presentation to get the self-advocacy group going there, because there's very little in the western half of North Dakota. And there is also interest in the following communities: Williston, Devils Lake, Harvey, and Minot. We're currently working with them on trying to get things scheduled to do a presentation with them. And then I have a personal question just for the council. Are there any places you feel that self-advocacy is needed, and if so, how will you help to kind of like initiate and ensure the success? Because if I had the ability to clone myself, I would just go everywhere and get everything done. But I don't have that technology quite yet, so I would like some help.
Can you assign Carrie to be the staff for the consumer leadership group?
I don't have a suggestion of a where, but I have a person that might be a great help with Standing Rock, would be Katie Oakland. Katie does teach and has done therapy with the tribe, with disabled individuals, both adults and children. So I know Julie gets along with Katie great, would maybe be just a great person, like a way to connect some of those individuals.
Stephanie Yellowhammer was a parent that just went through Partners, and she lives in Standing Rock, and she was really excited.
And Janet Kate also.
And Janet Kate too.
Is it your grandparent?
Yeah. Oh, grandparent, sorry, yes.
But the other person that's maybe a little, Colette Fleck is the transition coordinator at the high school.
Okay.
And so she's a special educator, and she does a ton of transition activities with their youth and whoever is young adults still in their system. And then,
Wasn't someone the coordinator for United Tribes?
the coordinator for United Tribes
Yeah.
is Stephanie.
Oh, United Tribes. For the college. There was someone, I'll think about it.
If you have those people's contact, would you send them our way so we can kind of try to bring?
Like Katie's got a network of some that she's done horseback
Right.
riding with.
That would be great.
I'd ask Julie if you, for instance, like could be the staff assigned to help with minutes and meetings and stuff for the Consumer Leadership
totally
Committee. In that aspect, I think involving the council with our self-advocacy group would be huge, and that wouldn't cost us anything. I mean, it's a thing we do, we should be invested in it. And the Consumer Leadership, Committee, whether or not it stays an independent committee or we jump on and have further conversations later, because we only have a few minutes left, but with the membership of all, I mean, I know it's our self-advocacy group, but I think I was told by some other members that talking about having advocacy, I guess the membership that you guys are wanting to expand, or they were wanting to expand.
Yeah,
and
we've been trying to expand because we were really good, and then of course 2020 decided to do all of us a huge disservice, and we've lost a vast majority of our members, and we're trying slowly to build it back up.
Could the communications that go to the all group for events, and if there's volunteers needed, be forwarded to the council?
Oh, yeah.
I had asked that too, like
I understand that.
because it's not like a sub.
Not a meeting, it's just a call for
Even
volunteers.
the outreach ones in the communities you live in, you're welcome to attend and help as needed.
I have a dumb question. Does Dickinson have?
Able
is kind of like on their own, doing their own group. And when I approached Bowman, because we did a presentation with them, and I also approached Janelle Stolten, who is kind of like the Able head person. And she said that the Dickinson Able group just does theirs on their own in collaboration with some other people, but Bowman group is on their own. But if there's other people in Dickinson that don't get services from Able that want a self-advocacy group, we would not object to that.
I can look into it. I would have to ask one of my providers because I'm so siloed with just my daughter and I, but yeah, I should know more about my own community.
I think if you send out the activities of all, I mean, I have membership all over the state. So it would
Send it,
I'd love to call. I was thinking yesterday after I was there about the people that I could have encouraged to come and didn't really think about it very much.
That was one of my requests when I started learning more about all too, is if we could, again, just even the first step of involving the council more, and then from there, be able to have more connections and growth and involvement, because I think that all would benefit more from us knowing, and I think we would benefit more from knowing what all is doing, because you guys are doing a lot of work that I would love to see the council doing, honestly, and supporting others to do.
Lori has her hand up.
Dismiss everybody.
Drive safe. Thanks. Yes, Lori.
Just wondering if you've also tapped into the Centers for Independent Living. There are, 8 or 9 of them across the state, and
Yeah, I have been in contact with a couple. Our vice president, Connie Klein, works for Independence.
Yep.
And so she's been helping with that, so.
Yep. Just even sending something out to the executive directors of the centers might really yield some great opportunities.
Okay, yeah.
Should we move to updates so people can?
Yeah. Last thing was, well, there was updates and announcements at this point. I think we've all become very familiar with each other. If we want to do any personal updates, or Kim, I know you had your transition stuff to talk about, and then there was just the announcements. If you have the virtual document versus the print off, I have hyperlinked to some of the stuff that PNA sends out, and some other ones to have like the link to exactly where it is, if it's an online thing or if it's in person, or where it was advertised and mentioned. Do you want to do your transition?
Yeah, I can do mine. So, like Carrie had mentioned, she had Vicky come and do some trainings to their group and things. We do have money set aside for transition-related activities because it's one of our 5-year priorities too in maternal and child health. And so this last beginning of the biennium, we had $50,000 for the biennium that we put out for RFP, and we had 2 applicants. Family Voices of North Dakota had applied for like $40,000 to develop a transition curriculum, and then we had a smaller health clinic apply for like a small $10,000 grant just to help to basically buy supplies and supplement their rehabilitative program for kids who are transitioning into adulthood to make their therapies a little bit more conducive. And so that's what our money went towards this biennium. But come spring, we're going to start working on our RFP again, getting that template already, that application packet already. We haven't talked about dollar amounts, but it's likely, since our block grant hasn't went up or down in funding, that that amount will probably stay the same. Maybe we'll be able to bump it up a little bit more, but likely around that $50,000 mark for the biennium to put out on an RFP. But like I was saying to Julie and Brittany, now that we're one agency, it would make it a lot easier if we could braid our funding together and you guys could take part in development of that RFP, and then we could maybe have the pot be a little bit bigger if we wanted to work on what we wanted to see with those applications. Generally, we try to have a very generic work plan format for folks because we don't want to make the application hard, and we expect them to write a small narrative piece too, and then a budget. And I could work with Julie and Brittany and the whole council if you guys would like to see that or be a part of that. And if you wanted to put funds together, we could talk about how that would look. But we'd be more than happy to do that. And then we send those out electronically, basically in any way that we can get the word out. And I usually try to give folks at least a month to write. Because like folks had mentioned earlier, when you put things out for RFP, you want to make sure that your applicants have time to really think of a good project that they could do and that would be feasible. Generally, our contracts are 2 years, but we could also look at that too if you wanted to do a smaller grant or smaller grant opportunity with a less amount of time, or if you like that large pot of money with a 2-year contract. I mean, all of that would be negotiable. So just wanted to throw that out there as an opportunity because I know transition's tough and it's tough for us too to get those applications in. So the more opportunities to get the word out there and maybe more money, we could get more people interested. I'm just not sure, but thought I would throw that out there as an opportunity because we'll probably start working on that. I want to say probably March.
Do you have a tentative kind of generic idea of the overarching theme of what you're
so our theme just basically has to be our priority is transition of pediatric patients from pediatric to adulthood, and generally we focus on kids with special needs, but it could be a project that focused on all children but was inclusive of kids with special healthcare needs. We tend to have more luck that way just because children with special needs is a little bit more focused.
So transition being a particular age group, or transitioning from one program to another?
Ours is generally ages 14 to 21. So transition from pediatric to adult healthcare.
I would love to see us focus somewhere on age-appropriate childcare services for those kids in transition. I know that that is one age group that we targeted with the childcare study that services are non-existent. So it would kind of fit that goal for us where we're talking about 14 to 21, where typically, a child is able to be left alone or unsupervised, but a lot of children in our demographic are not. But there are no
who aren't otherwise
centers.
Receiving like in-home supports though, or?
But there's a lot that don't receive in-home supports.
That's what I meant, so who aren't, or the population.
Or in-home supports doesn't want in-home supports to be used as childcare, so they pull back hours.
Should just be autism, yeah.
Well, I mean, DD services too, they try to trend away from children receiving it just for childcare purposes and want it to be specialized care. It would be great to see something age appropriate and inclusive, maybe through the local YMCA's or something where there's some programs developed to include that age demographic and child appropriate behaviors.
I don't think it'll pick us up.
Yeah, I would say our biggest barrier has really been just getting the applicants.
Yeah.
You know, we have the funding available and try to send it out to as many people as we can think. And then it's just kind of a harder topic. And so I think folks maybe struggle with a project. So that's been our biggest barrier, I would say, is just getting the applicants.
I would love to see.
Something we would have to bounce from like YMCA or like the colleges or somewhere at like developing some sort of peer-to-peer.
Yeah, and we do have some caveats, I should say, with MCH funding, and I don't know how your restrictions look too, Julie, but of course, like allowable versus unallowable expenses. MCH is really big about food. We can never buy food. So that, of course, is a thing. A lot of projects, like they want to incentivize attendance with food, and then we have to say, oh, we can't buy food.
We're under the same HHS policy,
Mhm.
so the
Yeah.
grant policy.
So food is a big one. Incentive cards and those kinds of things, they're doable, but they're very difficult. So we tend to glean away from those. So those kinds of things. And so I don't know if that's discouraging for people to apply, but.
We would be the same.
So Walker Middle School has like most of them have like a peer-to-peer program, but if there was like.
We
some
see
sort
your
of
hand, Toby, by the way.
Supervision included in that, and that could be fun, like funding the peer-to-peer program to include supervision after school. Like, and have peer-to-peer interaction after school, like those.
Blast doesn't go to middle school, does it? The after-school programs, right?
No.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if we could spend the MCH funding that way, because it has to have like a health component in there.
Yeah.
I mean, if you had an after-school program that was going to incorporate.
What inclusive sports with it?
Maybe like some well child checks or some educational sessions
think there
on
is, like,
health.
the
So it's not just
would have to
transition,
have-
transition.
Like I think about, I know Lindsay talks about a lot, like after-school care with a nurse present, because there's kids with diabetes that need, like, or in the case of like you need especially trained individuals for that supervision. So there's like the health component of what supervision.
Yeah, if there was a health component.
But
I'd like to see the big network providers actually use the nursing coaching, actually do more than the 5 seconds in a clinic setting. So on the public health realm of it, I liked when I did groups that went back to the basics. Majority of the population that I worked with, the SMI and dual diagnosis in that sense, but we also had some adults with DE, but not knowing is, OTs are the greatest things in the world. They really are. Love you, Toby. But not knowing what you don't know, one, and majority of individuals with developmental delays or other contributing factors that lead to those like skill area deficits they don't know, understanding that you need to brush your teeth twice a day and why may not have ever been shared, or the reason why, or how. So the constructiveness of going, teaching how to do it effectively. That's one of my pet peeves with plans all across the state, is saying, have good hygiene. What is good hygiene? Did you teach them good hygiene? Have you defined what good hygiene is? And so I like kind of like the curriculum at Living in the Adult World, but health focused and coordinating with school systems and voc rehab. And so I like collaborative, but I don't know if it would go that far.
Paid Family Voices to develop for us, and so they are past the development phase, and they're now rolling that out. And so
the more health focused.
Yes. Yeah.
We've talked about like the medical appointment navigating and the reminding and things like that. It's it's such a needed area, but finding
15.
Yeah, that is just a thought. If you guys wanted to collaborate on that,
Yep.
I know that's a great opportunity for us to partner. So
sounds good.
Thought I'd throw that out there, but that's kind of all I've got.
If your guys' phones all blew up because Great American Bike Race announced today the changes that they're making to their program. So
I haven't read it, but I got it.
I'm on the disbursement committee, so I knew about this a while ago, and not half, but a lot of the disbursement committee has since resigned because they're really upset with the direction that Sanford's taken. Kind of knew this was, so Great American Bike Race used to be separate, and then Sanford took over Med Center, they took over Great American Bike Race, and we knew this was going to happen at some point, that they were going to push this just for Sanford patients, and now they have. So now the Great American Bike Race funding is going to be restricted to like 1,200.
1,500.
Yeah.
Sanford Health Bismarck Region patient under 18 years of age, financial eligibility, which they've had, and
They are opening
exhaust all
up
of the
the
funding.
eligibility criteria and removing cerebral palsy and all of those diagnoses, developmental delay from the criteria, they're opening it up to all Sanford patients under the age of 18. However, they are restricting the funding to $1,500 per year. So we are going to see a massive influx of families struggling with, because what they were using those funds for was wheelchairs, like, I know Nathan's stand-up wheelchair, that was Gabber funded, horseback riding, aquatic therapy, like non-traditional therapies, medical travel, medical co-pays. So I think we are going to see an influx of families looking towards other resources, including possibly our consumer grants, other things like pursuing through other agencies how to get help. The limit used to be what, $12,000 per year?
If they put a limit on it the last couple of years, I wasn't aware of it. There
Well,
didn't used to be a limit. It was, if there was, it was a very soft cap.
Right,
and
and they used
flexible.
to allow adults to apply, and then they capped it to what age?
I'm not seeing any kind of diagnosis or even.
They're not, it's just gotta be a Sanford patient, which was
So it's
that
not even
criteria.
disability related anymore
No.
or condition, I mean, not even specific condition, but not even
How much
overarching.
money did Sanford absorb from Gabber?
So supposedly, there's 2 existing bank accounts or 2 existing funds, and those, one was depleted, and the second one, they have said that through this next year that they will apply the same criteria as the past to deplete that fund, but once it's gone, it's gone. But the bike race itself, those funds will now be used for any pediatric Sanford patient that's referred.
They contradict themselves. They say the mission and assistance is expanded and adapted over the years to meet the needs, changing needs of local children. They're saying the disabilities and whatever. And then today, with record numbers of young patients counting on Sanford Children's and Bismarck, we're once again seeing the need for opportunity to shift the gears. So most of the kids who are dependent upon Sanford Children's have a high need diagnosis of some sort.
Well, not only that, but the region used to include most of North Dakota. They're
Yeah.
restricting it to this area. They're restricting it to only Sanford patients. You used to not have to be a Sanford patient to apply. You could be a patient in Dickinson that had CP. The biggest issue they're gonna run into is most of their highest fundraising teams have children with CP and don't live in this, like Dickinson is a huge fundraising effort, thousands and thousands of dollars. So it's already all over like my Facebook, all the people I know.
Everybody who
really
has been
sad.
a team knows so that they're not.
It's
acting
blowing up
something.
everywhere. There's a lot of really upset people because that was really the only.
It's still your fundraiser.
Well, and Gabber paid out a lot over a long time because DD wouldn't, because DD said that they were last resort, that they wanted you to exhaust community.
Well, and they bounced it off each other.
Grants and
Like
resources.
DDPMs would send people to Gabber, which they're not supposed to
No.
do. And then Gabber would refuse to pay if DD funds weren't used first. So they bounced off each other.
So
But I think we're
I-
gonna see a huge increase in families looking for other resources and or a huge pushback in the community from all the fundraising that's been done for all these years for this specific reason.
So who's pushing this?
Sanford.
So make a
I heard that a while back.
Make a request
I know.
for their
I know.
financial records of how much carryover from previous fundraising efforts and families
Well,
who
they
are no longer
told
gonna.
the committee that that fund is going to be depleted for its original intent, and then any fundraised dollars after that point. But like my buddy works for the gifting foundation, and he was like, well, you guys knew this was gonna happen eventually. It has to be geared towards Sanford patients for it to be under our umbrella.
Why?
And I was like, that's not the intent.
Why does it, why can't Sanford have community outreach?
Well, because then it wouldn't fall under the foundation, it would fall under a Sanford community, and they might send you some can coolers.
So you,
That looks
I
good.
don't think they'll go back to adults.
Nope, just children under the age of 18, and they're limiting it to, $1,500 a year, so it's gonna be a big deal. I know families that access like thousands of dollars a year for medical travel, for equipment, for, yay.
I believe we've lost quorum and I called.
Yeah.
Adjourn.
Well,
Or call for a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, we
or
have lost
something.
quorum. For sure.
Shoot, yeah.
That is not even.
Yeah, so.
detailed, But I won't be surprised if we see
Without
an influx of
quorum,
grant
we
applications.
technically just have to stop. It doesn't even necessarily have to be a vote. But the meeting has to stop, no more
Maybe you can
business.
just call the adjournment.
Yes, so we can adjourn. I did want to share the announcement, which isn't necessarily business, but
Your agenda.
I think you guys would definitely have that agenda. So the most pressing is Friday. Is it Friday the 9th?
Yep,
If
tomorrow.
you're interested, oh yeah.
Good guy.
So
Already.
tomorrow, PNA is working with DHS to have them talk about the proposed budget that was released yesterday. It'll be a question to ask, you know, what DHS's priorities are, and learn what they're doing. I think we'll definitely hear from Chris that all this is out of their hands, so I think you need to be very specific in asking questions, you know, are you increasing the personal needs allowance? Was that in the governor's budget? I mean, he has the perspective that it's up to the legislature and it doesn't matter what the executive branch submits, but I think it's important to ask pointed questions if you want pointed